Chapter 42-44. The most important thing isn't the level of this inscription pattern, but that the drawing of this inscription pattern has almost reached perfection. Chung Zonghao looked at the inscription pattern in his hand and couldn't hide the astonishment in his eyes. Perfection. Wu Wenfeng looked at Chung Zonghao doubtfully, not quite understanding what he meant. He had some understanding of inscriptions, but he had never heard of anyone talking about them. Chung Zonghao nodded slightly. That's right, it's the perfection level. You're not an inscription master, so you might not know much about this. Actually, there will be a certain difference between inscription patterns of the same level. The more perfect the inscription pattern is drawn, the greater the effect of the inscription pattern and the smoother the elemental energy circulation will be. However, all this while, we can only make it as close to perfection as possible, but to be able to achieve perfection, we have never seen it before. But this inscription pattern is actually able to achieve this. Chung Zonghao's eyes shone brightly, and even revealed a hint of crazed passion. According to what I know, there was someone who was able to draw this inscription pattern a few hundred years ago. But after that, this method gradually disappeared. Until now, although we have tried our best to achieve this, we are still unable to achieve it. Manager Wu, where did you get this inscription pattern from? I believe that the person who drew this inscription pattern must be an incredible inscription master. If I can find him, I have many questions to ask him. Wu Wenfeng looked at Chung Zonghao's agitated and anxious look, and he was stunned. God, what did he just hear? Such a young Bailey Hongzhuang actually drew an inscription pattern that even Chung Zonghao couldn't draw? This feeling was as if he was knocked unconscious by a stone. He only felt that his brain couldn't react in time. After Chung Zonghao finished speaking, he looked at Wu Wenfeng, only to realize that Wu Wenfeng was still in a daze, as if he didn't hear what he said at all. Manager Wu? Chung Zonghao couldn't help but remind him. Wu Wenfeng only regained his senses when he heard this, and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. From Chung Zonghao's expression, he could tell how persistent he was about this inscription pattern. If Chung Zonghao knew that this inscription pattern was drawn by Bailey Hongzhuang, he almost didn't need to think about it to know that he would definitely try to poach Bailey Hongzhuang. No, definitely not. He knew Chung Zonghao's character very well. If Bailey Hongzhuang followed Chung Zonghao, even if the D family came to find trouble, it would definitely be useless. However, in this way, the Raging Flame sect would lose a great talent. Such a young inscription master, who was even better than Chung Zonghao, had unlimited potential. Master Chung, I got this inscription by accident. I don't know who the owner is, Wu Wenfeng said. Hearing this, Chung Zonghao looked at Wu Wenfeng with a tone full of doubt. He was not a stupid person. Just from Wu Wenfeng's attitude just now, he could tell that there was something wrong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have pondered for so long. Although he was shocked and came to this conclusion, Chung Zonghao didn't expose him. Instead, he smiled and said, by chance? Where did you get it from? Chapter 42-45. Chung Zonghao did not find this situation strange. After all, the Raging Flame sect was also a large force. If they could recruit this inscription master, it would solve a huge problem for them. If it was any other time, he would have stopped asking, but this discovery was too important to him, so he could only thicken his skin and continue asking. As long as he knew where the inscription master appeared, he believed that with his methods, he would be able to find the inscription master. After seeing Chung Zonghao's attitude, Wu Wenfeng knew that Chung Zonghao would not give up until he knew everything. However, he was also firm in his decision to not say anything. I accidentally saw it in the market. At that time, the person who introduced it said that this inscription pattern was of a very high level. When I saw it, I also felt that it was very good. After thinking about it, I still bought it. However, I am after all a layman, so I came here to ask you to help me appraise it. After saying that, Wu Wenfeng's gaze was still on Chung Zonghao. He did not know if the lie he made up at the last minute could convince the other party. I see. Chung Zonghao nodded his head. Steward Wu, your luck is really extraordinary. It's definitely rare to see such a treasure. Yes. Wu Wenfeng smiled. Master Chung, if there's nothing else, I will take my leave first. Wait, Master Chung, is there anything else? Steward Wu, I have a presumptuous request. Chung Zonghao pondered and said. Wu Wenfeng's expression changed slightly. He vaguely guessed it in his heart. However, he pretended that he did not know anything and said, Master Chung, if you have something to say, just say it. I wonder if you can give this inscription pattern to me? Chung Zonghao said, while looking at Wu Wenfeng's expression. Without waiting for a reply, he immediately added, I can use 3 inscriptions of the same level to exchange for it. For this inscription pattern to be able to reach such a level, it has too much research value to me. I hope that Steward Wu can part with it. Hearing this, Wu Wenfeng was surprised. He knew that it was extremely difficult to get an inscription pattern from Chung Zonghao, but now Chung Zonghao was willing to take out 3 inscription patterns to exchange for one. It could be seen how much he valued this inscription pattern. If it was any other time, he would definitely agree without the slightest hesitation. But now he couldn't agree. Since only Bailey Hongzhuang could create such an inscription, it was naturally best for the Raging Flame School. With this, the Raging Flame School would be able to rebuild their reputation. Thinking about this, Wu Wenfeng's face was filled with guilt. Master Chung, it's not that I don't want to agree, but this inscription is so outstanding. I think I need to hand it over to the sect leader for him to decide. I'm really sorry. Chung Zonghao frowned. 5 inscriptions. Master Chung, I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. The more he talked with Chung Zonghao, the more pressure Wu Wenfeng felt. If this continued, he wouldn't know how to cover up his lie. In the next second, without waiting for Chung Zonghao to continue speaking, Wu Wenfeng had already left quickly. Chung Zonghao looked at Wu Wenfeng's back that was almost running away. He frowned and fell in a deep thought. However, he did not chase after him. Chapter 42-46. Immediately after, Wu Wenfeng quickly walked towards the Blazing Flame School. He had to grab this opportunity to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang into the Blazing Flame School. At this moment, he even regretted not agreeing immediately. He really didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have such shocking attainments in inscription patterns. He was really grateful to Wanyan Han. If it wasn't for him, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't even have the thought of joining the Blazing Flame School. With such a talent, who knows how many forces would be willing to extend an olive branch to her. Now that she had taken the initiative to join them, he was actually still considering. Thinking of this, Wu Wenfeng's forehead broke out in cold sweat. Luckily, he immediately came over to check and didn't say anything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have any chance to redeem himself. Master Chung, I feel that Steward Wu isn't telling the truth. Lu Jin looked at Chung Zonghao, who was deep in thought, and whispered her thoughts. Chung Zonghao chuckled. He found such a talent, so he naturally wouldn't be willing to tell the truth. If we were to poach her, who knows how much regret he would have. Send someone to follow him and find out where he went and who he was in contact with. You must report to me immediately. Yes. Chung Zonghao narrowed his eyes. I'm afraid such a powerful inscription master isn't an ordinary person. But why haven't I heard of him before? This was what he couldn't understand the most. With the other party's inscription technique, he must be an extremely famous person. But why hadn't he heard of such a person before? Unless he's from a large force. But if that's the case, neither I nor the Blazing Flame School can successfully recruit him. Why is Wu Wenfeng being so secretive? Chung Zonghao fiddled with his fingers. His eyes were covered with a layer of mist, making it hard for others to understand. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Wanyan Han and Lu Jin to their residence. With one look, she realized that the environment here was very good. The cultivator's residence was very comfortable and couldn't be picky. Although this place is different from my home, I have to say that living here is very comfortable. The beds and blankets here are all of the best quality. As a disciple of the Raging Flame School, this treatment is well known. Wanyan Han smiled as he introduced the place to Bailey Hongzhuang. Back then, he had joined the House of Raging Flames because he had heard that the treatment here was good enough for cultivators to develop. Indeed, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. Living here should be very comfortable. It would be best if you could join us. We can temporarily cultivate here in peace and increase our strength. Little junior sister, Your cultivation talent is so outstanding. I believe that with these cultivation resources, your progress will be very fast. Don't worry, I will definitely stay here. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down at the side. Sure enough, the bed was very soft and the material was also very good. Miss Bailey, seeing how confident you are, I don't think there's any need to worry. Yi Hao Miao poured himself a cup of tea and drank it in one gulp. His face revealed a relaxed expression. He was originally a little worried, but now that the main character was so confident, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang must have something she could rely on. Chapter 42-47. So many things had happened today. Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao both felt very tired and very nervous. Although they relaxed a little after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they were still nervous. They were worried about what decision Steward Wu would make. However, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's calm appearance, they couldn't help but sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang's mental fortitude was extraordinary. She could still remain so calm after going through so many things. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao stood up almost immediately. Wang Yanhan even opened the door immediately. As expected, Wu Wenfeng's figure appeared in their line of sight. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was still in the room, Wu Wenfeng couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she was still in the room. He could finally put down his worried heart. A glimmer of light flashed across Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. It seemed that her judgment was right. Steward Wu. Wang Yanhan bowed and asked, "May I know if Steward Wu has made a decision?" After speaking, Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao looked at Wu Wenfeng nervously. They only wanted to know what decision Wu Wenfeng would make. If Wu Wenfeng refused, they had already made plans to leave together. No matter what, they couldn't let Bailey Hongzhuang be in danger alone. "I agree," Wu Wenfeng said. Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao were momentarily stunned when they heard Wu Wenfeng's words. Soon after, the two of them revealed joyous smiles. "Really?" Wu Wenfeng nodded affirmatively. "Of course. I knew this guy would definitely agree. No matter which force let go of a talent like Master, they would feel heartache." Xiaohei jumped up. Her face was full of confidence and pride. In fact, they had never worried about this point. It was just that Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao didn't understand Master's strength well enough. That was why they were so worried. "That's right. They would be fools if they refused." "That's great." Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao also breathed a sigh of relief. They turned around and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise. From now on, they would be martial siblings. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled as well. Whether or not she could stay in the Sect of Flames was not important to her. However, she felt extremely fortunate to be able to stay with Wang Yanhan and Jianshun, because these two people made him feel warm. Wu Wenfeng walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. His usually serious face revealed a smile at this moment, and his aura was no longer as high and mighty as before. "Miss Bailey, I didn't expect your inscription technique to be so outstanding. I was blind before." Wu Wenfeng was also a flexible person. After knowing the true value of Bailey Hongzhuang, he knew what kind of attitude he should use to treat her. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't join the Sect of Flames, but as an inscription master, he would have to treat her with respect. This was the difference between them. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "Steward Wu doesn't understand inscription technique. It's normal that you don't know this." Chapter 42-48. Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao noticed the huge change in Wu Wenfeng's attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang. They couldn't help but feel astonished. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's extremely calm appearance, they suddenly understood. It seemed that they had underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. "Wang Yanhan, it seems that Miss Bailey's inscription technique is extraordinary. Steward Wu treats her so differently. It must be because the inscription just now is extraordinary." Yi Hao Miao lowered his voice. He had been in the Raging Flames sect for more than a year. Although Steward Wu wasn't a person who liked to put on airs, this was the first time he had seen such an attitude. It was absolutely impossible that there wasn't a problem. Wang Yanhan nodded slightly. "No wonder Junior Sister has always been so confident. I finally understand. In my opinion, Steward Wu's attitude has changed too much. I'm afraid what Miss Bailey said before was true. She has many places to go in the upper realm. She doesn't have to worry about having nowhere to go. Yi Hao Miao's eyes flashed with astonishment. Inscriptionists are completely different from ordinary cultivators like us. It's already very difficult for us to join the Raging Flames sect. However, inscriptionists are people that any force would take the initiative to recruit. Junior sister chose to join the Raging Flames sect because of us. Wang Yanhan sighed faintly. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang had been very hesitant when he tried to recruit her. It turned out that this was the problem. Miss Bailey, I just learned that your inscription technique has reached the level of a master. I wonder if you're joining the Raging Flames sect as a master or a cultivator. Your status is so honorable. Why don't you directly become an inscription master of our Raging Flames sect? Steward Wu smiled. Status had always had nothing to do with age. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was young, her inscription technique had already reached such a level that it was enough for everyone to call her a master. No matter where she was, she should be respected by everyone. As Steward Wu's voice fell, Yi Hao Miao almost choked. Cough, cough, cough. Bailey Hongzhuang and Wu Wenfeng couldn't help but look at Yi Hao Miao. However, Yi Hao Miao waved his hand, indicating for everyone to ignore him. Steward Wu turned around and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, waiting for her answer. Thank you for your kind intentions, Steward Wu. However, I will join as a cultivator. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Her status as an inscriptionist could indeed raise her status, but what she wanted more was to improve her strength. If he joined as an inscription master, his treatment would naturally be better, but if he wanted to cultivate with everyone, it would not be convenient. Moreover, she also didn't wish for there to be such a separation between her and Wang Yanhan. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, Wu Wenfeng couldn't help but be slightly stunned. A trace of astonishment flashed across his eyes. He really couldn't imagine that Bailey Hongzhuang would make such a decision. Since Miss Bailey is so insistent, I won't say anything more. However, don't worry. Although you will join as a cultivator, we all know your identity. Therefore, you will still enjoy the treatment of a master. Thank you, Steward Wu. Bailey Hongzhuang accepted with a smile. Since there were such benefits, she naturally wouldn't reject it. Chapter 42-49. Miss Bailey, you're too polite. It's our honor to be able to invite you back. Don't worry, I'll arrange for your accommodation immediately. I'll also get someone to prepare the things you need. Thank you, Manager Wu. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands. I'd like to stay somewhere close to senior brother Wan Yin. No problem. Wu Wenfeng nodded. This was a small matter that could be solved with just a word. Miss Bailey, there's something else I hope you can agree to. Go ahead, Manager Wu. Inscriptions have always been something that cultivators need. However, there's only one inscription master in the entire Rome and city. The inscriptions drawn by normal inscription masters aren't of much help to cultivators in our Raging Flames sect. Your inscription skills have already reached the level of a master. I hope you can help draw some inscriptions from time to time. Of course, that's only when you're free. Furthermore, we'll definitely reward you handsomely. Wu Wenfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with anticipation. This was the most troublesome matter for the Raging Flames sect recently. Inscriptions were the best reward for cultivators. However, every time they wanted to get a few inscriptions from Changzonghao, not only did they have to pay a high reward, they might not even succeed. This was something that they had always been troubled by. If Bailey Hongzhuang agreed, then their problem would be solved. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment. It seemed like she had underestimated the attraction of inscriptions to the Raging Flames sect. Manager Wu's heart was also in his mouth. Whether or not he could contribute depended on whether Bailey Hongzhuang agreed or not. Sure, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, but it's only limited to a certain range. My main focus is on cultivation. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang agreed, Wu Wenfeng's face instantly revealed a happy smile. He nodded, no problem. No problem. It definitely won't affect your cultivation. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang smirked. She had to contact someone to draw the inscription on a daily basis anyway. She was just conveniently selling the inscription to the Raging Flames sect. It wasn't a bad idea. All right, I happen to have a few inscription patterns here. I wonder if Manager Wu is interested? Bailey Hongzhuang took out a few inscription patterns from her Chinquan bag. These were the inscription patterns that she had drawn during her practice. At that time, in order to help Wang Yanhan draw the most suitable inscription pattern for him, she also studied for a period of time. During this period of time, she drew some inscription patterns which were not bad. The moment he saw the inscription on Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, Wu Wenfeng's eyes lit up and he immediately said, Of course I am. If the D family comes looking for trouble, Bailey Hongzhuang stretched out her voice, looking at Wu Wenfeng in front of her. Wu Wenfeng immediately understood. Miss Bailey, don't worry. As long as you are in the Raging Flame sect, I can guarantee that the D family will not dare to find trouble with you. Although the D family has a certain amount of power in their region, in Ronan City, they are no match for the Raging Flame sect. Chapter 4250. Wu Wenfeng took the inscription and couldn't help but feel happy. With these inscriptions, he believed that some of the cultivators in the sect would be able to improve their strength again. After Wu Wenfeng left, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao surrounded Bailey Hongzhuang. What are you doing? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the two people in front of her and couldn't help but shrink her neck. Her eyes were full of doubts. Junior sister, you've hidden your strength too well. If we knew you were so powerful, we wouldn't have been so worried before. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands. I've already told you before, but you were still worried. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao looked at each other. Yi Haomiao nodded. Thinking about it carefully, it seems to be so. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang had been emphasizing for them to relax, but they were still worried. Now it seemed that they were overthinking. Since he sent people to follow Wu Wenfeng, Cheng Zonghao had been pacing back and forth in the room. This matter was too important to him, so he couldn't calm down and do other things. He was only thinking about where Wu Wenfeng's inscription came from. If he could find that inscription master, no matter what price he had to pay, he was willing to do it as long as the inscription master told him the method. He knew too well how explosive this news would be once it was spread out. If other inscription masters knew about it, it would really be a big mess. Not long after, Lu Jin came over. Seeing Lu Jin, Cheng Zonghao immediately asked, Lu Jin, what's the result of following him? Master Cheng, according to the report, Wu Wenfeng directly returned to the Raging Flame sect after leaving and didn't go anywhere else. Cheng Zonghao frowned, and his eyes flashed with confusion and doubt. He actually went back? That's not right. Master Cheng, what's wrong with him going back? Lu Jin was puzzled. She didn't understand what the problem was. According to what he said before, this inscription was obtained from the trade market. Then, after knowing the true value of this inscription, he must have returned to the trade market immediately. However, he didn't go there and instead returned to the Raging Flame sect. This proves that what he told me before is most likely false. Lu Jin understood and sighed. That's right. If what he said is true, he must want to find an inscription master as soon as possible. According to the report, he didn't want to come out after going back. It's really too strange. Send someone out to find out what happened to the Raging Flame school recently. Be careful. I believe we will find the root of the problem. Cheng Zonghao's gaze was firm and persistent. He would never give up on such a good opportunity. No matter what, he had to find the inscription master. No matter how well Wu Wenfeng's hiding, it was hiding the secret master's hide. With the news that Wu Wenfeng had recruited Bailey Hongzhuang into the Raging Flame sect, all the cultivators in the Raging Flame sect were shocked. T-T-Tess-S-S, that's twos. Tis T-Tis-S to T-Tess, even T understand it. S-Sest, S-T understand wise twoses. Chapter 4251. Although Steward Wu has always treated Wang Yanhan well, Wang Yanhan has caused such a big trouble this time. Not only did Steward Wu not blame him, he even recruited his junior sister. Isn't this too biased? I've never seen Steward Wu help anyone like this before. Diwen Tao is someone with a background. In comparison, Wang Yanhan has no background. What is Steward Wu thinking? Isn't helping Wang Yanhan like this offending the D family? It seems that Wang Yanhan will be a big deal in the Raging Flame School in the future. Since Steward Wu is helping him so much, it's better not to offend him in the future. The more they discussed, the more they felt that Steward Wu was biased towards Wang Yanhan. Although they didn't know why, they had already made up their minds to not provoke Wang Yanhan in the future. Now that Wang Yanhan didn't even care about Di Wentao, they indeed didn't have the capital to provoke him. After Yin Xiangming and the others heard this, their hearts also thumped. For a moment, they couldn't understand why the outcome was completely different from what they had imagined. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two walked out of the house to have dinner, they met Yin Xiangming and the others. From afar, they noticed that the three of them were looking at them with hatred. Obviously, they hated them to the core. Yin Xiangming and the other two are really Di Wentao's loyal dogs. Now that Di Wentao has become a cripple, they are still so stubborn. How surprising. Yi Hao Miao shook his head and sighed. Today's matter was really a glimmer of hope. They originally thought that they were finished. Unexpectedly, the outcome was much better than they had imagined. For a moment, they didn't have to be afraid. It wasn't until they walked past Yin Xiangming and the others that Yin Xiangming called out, "Wang Yanhan." Wang Yanhan stopped and turned around to look at Yin Xiangming coldly. He raised his eyebrows and said, "What's the matter?" Seeing Wang Yanhan's nonchalant look, Yin Xiangming couldn't help but feel angry. He glared at him and said, "Wang Yanhan, you're really capable. You haven't been kicked out of the Raging Flame School after causing such a big trouble." "Thank you for the compliment." Wang Yanhan shrugged. "Actually, I've always been very capable. It's a little too late for you to realize it today." Yin Xiangming's face darkened immediately. "Although I don't know how you managed to stay here, I have to tell you that the Di family will never let you off. You turned Di Wentao into a cripple. Just wait for the Di clan's revenge." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two chuckled. "Come at me if you have the guts. We'll wait here." As soon as they finished speaking, they took large strides and swaggered away. Yin Xiangming and the other two stood in place, their hands gradually clenching into fists. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's attitude clearly showed that they didn't care about Di Wentao's matter at all. How despicable! Yin Xiangming couldn't help but shout angrily. How dare they swagger through the streets like this? This time, I really don't understand. Previously, Wang Yanhan was clearly so afraid of Wentao. What's going on now? His personality suddenly changed. Could it be that he has a backer? Chapter 42-52. After Di Wentao's Dantian was destroyed, he was carried into the inn by Yin Xiangming and the rest. He was now resting on the bed. Until now, he still couldn't believe that he had become a cripple. When Yin Xiangming and the rest returned, he immediately asked, "What's the situation now? Have Wang Yanhan and the rest been chased out?" Looking at Di Wentao's anxious look, Yin Xiangming and the rest couldn't help but look at each other, finding it difficult to speak. Seeing this, Di Wentao frowned. "What's the situation? Hurry up and tell me." "Wentao, we also don't know what's going on. They haven't been chased out." "What?" Di Wentao tugged at Yin Xiangming's clothes. "That's impossible. It's true, we're not lying to you." Yin Xiangming hurriedly explained. "Moreover, Wang Yanhan's junior sister has been recruited into the Fiery Blaze sect. To be honest, if we didn't see it with our own eyes, we wouldn't dare to believe it either." "Impossible." Wang Yanhan reached out and threw all the tea on the floor. His eyes were bloodshot as he shouted furiously, "That's absolutely impossible." Wentao, Yin Xiangming, and the rest hurriedly approached, trying to calm Di Wentao down. However, Di Wentao suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Huffed. Di Wentao's eyes widened as he looked at the three people in front of him. Then his entire body convulsed and fell onto the bed. Seeing this, Yin Xiangming and the rest were dumbfounded. "Wentao, Wentao!" Yin Xiangming shook Di Wentao's body and realized that he didn't have any reaction. After testing his breathing, he realized that there was no breath at all. He couldn't help but take 2 steps back. His face was filled with shock and astonishment. "Wentao, he's already dead." Once this was said, the other 2 cultivators also looked as if they were struck by lightning. They stood dazedly on the spot, unable to react for a moment. Wasn't his Dantian destroyed? Why'd he die? "I don't know. Then what do we do?" Bailey Hongzhuang remained in the Fiery Blaze sect. At this moment, She had already moved into her own house. Life is truly strange. I never thought that I would end up joining a force from the upper realm. There was a faint smile on her delicate face. However, in the dead of the night, she missed Di Beichun even more. It had been a long time since she was alone. Master, are you thinking about Beichun? Xiao Hei sat beside Bailey Hongzhuang, her soft little body pressed against her, as if she wanted to give her the most warmth. Yes, I miss him. Bailey Hongzhuang hugged the little fur ball in her arms and rested her head on Xiao Hei's head. A smile slowly appeared on her lips. Xiao Hei, I didn't realize that you were quite suitable to be a pillow. You're so chubby. It's so comfortable to hug. As long as Master is happy, I don't mind being a pillow. Xiao Hei stuck close to Bailey Hongzhuang. Master, I believe that Beichun will come looking for you very soon. He definitely won't give up until he sees your corpse. Perhaps he has already come to the upper realm to look for you. It's a pity that I can't do anything now. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. If there was a way, at least she could still work hard. However, there was nothing she could do now. All she could do was ask around for the D family's whereabouts. Master, as long as you're doing well, that's what Beichun wants to see the most, Xiao Hei said. Chapter 4253. While Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about Di Beichun was walking on a road. The moonlight was hazy. Di Beichun raised his head to look at the full moon in the sky. His gaze was distant and filled with longing. Wife, wait for me. I'll find you very soon. Di Beichun's eyes became resolute as he gradually clenched his hands under his sleeves. Although he was separated from his wife this time, he was confident that he would be able to find her. After finding out that the transfer from the lower realm to the upper realm was random, he inquired about where the transfer would take him. Although he wasn't directly transferred to the same place as Hongzhuang, he believed that as long as he ran through all these places, he would definitely be able to find her. As long as they were still under the same sky, he would definitely be able to find her. Fortunately, there were transfer arrays between these large cities. However, it would take a certain amount of time to reach each transfer array. However, he had already tried his best to shorten the time. It was just a few cities. He was confident that he would only need to spend a little more time. In the next moment, Di Beichun started walking again. He couldn't help but pray that Bailey Hongzhuang would be safe and sound. The next day, the news of Di Wentao's death quickly spread to the Blazing Flame School. For a moment, everyone was shocked again. Heavens, how could this be? Could it be that Wang Yanhan didn't just turn Di Wentao into a cripple? He even killed him? That can't be right. When Wang Yanhan and the others returned yesterday, Di Wentao and the others were still alive. Could it be that they were hunted down by his enemies again? Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were dumbfounded when they heard the news. This situation was beyond their expectations. How could this be? I only crippled Di Wentao's cultivation. He couldn't have died. Yi Haomiao was also in disbelief. Now that Di Wentao is dead, I'm afraid that we'll be in big trouble. However, no one can prove that we killed him. In this way, the person who killed him will be someone else. Now that I think about it, it's not all bad for us. Upon hearing Yi Haomiao's words, Wang Yanhan pondered carefully for a moment before nodding. You're right. The Di family should be dealing with their murderer. Just as the two of them were discussing, the door was suddenly kicked open. Then, Yin Xiangming and the others appeared in their line of sight. Wang Yanhan. Yin Xiangming and the others glared at Wang Yanhan and Mo Wuji. Their eyes were filled with rage. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao immediately stood up and glared at him. Yin Xiangming, what are you doing? Wang Yanhan, you actually have a nerve to ask us now after killing Wen Tao. Yin Xiangming's eyes were burning, and his tone was extremely ruthless. He was simply about to be angered to death. Yesterday, Di Wentao died in front of him, just like that. Thinking back and forth, he could only conclude that Di Wentao was angered to death by Wang Yanhan. After all, after they said that piece of news, Di Wentao spat out a mouthful of blood and died directly. They didn't sleep for the whole night. This was really a big problem for them. They didn't know how to deal with it at all. They were afraid that someone would blame Di Wentao's death on them. Then, they would really be finished. Chapter 4254. Hearing Yin Xiangming and the other two's baseless accusations, Wang Yanhan and Yi Miao Miao were enraged. Yin Xiangming, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Which eye of yours saw us kill Di Wentao? Yesterday, after you crippled Wentao's cultivation, he died at night. He must have been heartbroken and anxious. Who else could it be but you? What you're saying is hilarious. Yi Hao Miao was speechless. You can't just pin such a huge crime on us. After we came back yesterday, we stayed in the Raging Flames sect and didn't go out at all. Moreover, I've never heard of anyone dying after their cultivation was crippled. Even if you say this, no one will believe you. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at Wang Yanhan's residence and saw this scene, she frowned slightly, but her expression was rather calm. Everything was within her expectations. In fact, when she took action yesterday, she had already expected this outcome. So, she hurried over early in the morning. I'm telling the truth. Yin Xiaoming raised his voice. Wentao died because of you. You must take responsibility. Bailey Hongzhuang walked past Yin Xiaoming and the others to Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao's side. She said, Yin Xiaoming, aren't you framing us a little too openly? I heard that Di Wentao was rescued by you. Although we crippled Di Wentao's cultivation, they were still alive and well. Yet, after leaving with you, he died. How to know if he did something? Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yin Xiaoming and the other two's faces turned pale. They were most afraid that everyone would think in this direction, but Bailey Hongzhuang just had to bring up this point. How could it be us? Don't make slanderous accusations. Hee. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. You can't even speak properly now that I've exposed you? Does this count as a confession without being pressed? Immediately, everyone looked at Yin Xiaoming and the others with strange gazes. Although everyone immediately felt that this matter was done by Wang Yanhan and the other two, Yin Xiaoming and the other two's reactions were indeed somewhat suspicious. With such a nervous look, it was obvious that he had a guilty conscience. We're not, Yin Xiaoming said righteously. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang coldly. Only now did he realize that Wang Yanhan's junior sister was not a simple character. In the past, when they dealt with Wang Yanhan, they had never found him so difficult to deal with. It turned out that all of this was related to this newly appeared Bailey Hongzhuang. Just like before, everything was under their control, but after Bailey Hongzhuang came, the situation changed. Of course, the murderer wouldn't admit to killing people. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged and said indifferently, if we wanted to kill him, we would have done it yesterday. Since we dared to cripple his cultivation, why wouldn't we dare to kill him? We just wanted to spare his life for the sake of being from the same sect. It's a pity that no matter how much we took precautions, we still couldn't stop you traitors. Chapter 4255. Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. With the arrival of Bailey Hongzhuang, the situation had completely changed. Wang Yanhan, your junior sister is really amazing. With her around, we don't have to worry about Yin Xiaoming and the rest slandering us. Yi Hao Miao sighed. He was not good with words. Although he understood the logic, it was still very complicated to explain. Bailey Hongzhuang was much more eloquent. Wang Yanhan nodded. Yin Xiaoming and the rest used a wrong move this time. With junior sister around, they can only return empty-handed. However, how did Di Wentao die? Could it be that Yin Xiaoming and the rest really killed him and want to frame us? I don't know. Under Bailey Hongzhuang's questioning, Yin Xiaoming and the rest were dumbfounded. No matter what they said, Bailey Hongzhuang was still able to turn the question to them, making them extremely helpless. Good. You're amazing. Yin Xiaoming looked at Bailey Hongzhuang furiously. Although his heart was filled with anger, there was nothing he could do. Even if you have a glib tongue, you can't deny this matter. We've already informed the Di family. They'll be here soon. As soon as he finished speaking, Yin Xiaoming said to the two people beside him, let's go. Although the other two people were extremely unwilling, they could only follow him and leave under such circumstances. After leaving, the two of them could not help but ask, are we leaving just like that? Won't that be letting that woman talk nonsense? What can we do if we don't leave? Yin Xiaoming was also extremely depressed. That Bailey Hongzhuang is really too sharp-tongued. If we continue to stay there, I'm afraid everyone will think that we did this. Under the circumstances just now, he clearly felt that everyone's views had started to change. More and more people believed Bailey Hongzhuang. This was definitely not a good sign. Hearing this, the two of them fell silent. Yin Xiangming's words were indeed reasonable. Then what should we do now? We can only wait for the D family to come. They should believe us. At the end of his speech, even Yin Xiangming himself lost some confidence. Only after Yin Xiangming and the other two left did the cultivators who were watching the show disperse one after another. The room also regained its tranquility. Bailey Hongzhuang closed the door and walked to the side to sit down. Yi Haomiao immediately gave her a thumbs up. "Miss Bailey, you're amazing. Today, I've finally seen the power of your glib tongue." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "You flatter me. Speaking of which, it's strange. Yesterday, I clearly didn't kill him. Logically speaking, Di Wentao shouldn't have died. However, if you say that he was killed by Yin Xiangming and the others, I can't believe it." Wang Yanhan's face was filled with contemplation. He had been rivals with Di Wentao and the others for so long and understood their personalities very well. Yin Xiangming and the others were absolutely loyal to Di Wentao. Even if Di Wentao became a cripple, they still went to rescue him. Just from this point, one could see their feelings towards Di Wentao. Chapter 4256. Speaking of which, the other party didn't achieve their goal of framing us. Seeing that Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were deep in thought, Bailey Hongzhuang spoke slowly. However, as soon as she said this, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were stunned. They stared at Bailey Hongzhuang stupidly, almost unable to digest what she said. "I killed Di Wentao. You killed him?" Yi Haomiao opened his mouth wide in disbelief. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "That's right." Wang Yanhan quickly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and lowered his voice. "Little junior sister, when did you do it? Did anyone find out about it? What you did was really too dangerous. Don't worry, no one should have noticed. Yesterday, when I did it, you were right next to me. You didn't seem to notice." "We were right next to you?" Wang Yanhan was stunned. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Then he asked in surprise, "Could it have been yesterday?" "That's right. But Di Wentao died last night. He was still alive and well during the day. I poisoned him. The toxin needs a certain amount of time to take effect. It's just enough to clear us of suspicion." Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands, her expression calm. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent expression, as if she was just saying that today's weather was good. "Miss Bailey, then you really acted quickly. I was right next to you at that time, but I didn't notice." Yi Haomiao still found it hard to believe. Logically speaking, cultivators at their level of cultivation were considered to have sharp eyes and quick hands. Ordinary people's actions couldn't escape their eyes at all. However, at that time, he really didn't notice at all. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. At that time, everyone's emotions were complicated. It's normal that they didn't notice this. "That's true." Yi Haomiao nodded. Then his gaze changed slightly. "So, what Yin Xiangming and the others said is true. However, the way you spoke with certainty just now completely made you look like a victim. This kind of framing always requires some acting skills." Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged, her expression innocent to the extreme. Yi Haomiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang for a moment, then cupped his fists and bowed. "I'm impressed. Junior sister Bailey, did you already calculate all of this yesterday?" Wang Yanhan couldn't help but ask after understanding everything that had happened. If all of this was within Bailey Hongzhuang's expectations, then this junior martial sister was too powerful. "That's not it." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "At that time, I only felt that Di Wentao was a very troublesome person. If he was still alive, I'm afraid that he would constantly think of ways to make trouble for us. The only way to solve this problem once and for all was to directly kill him. I didn't think that Yin Xiangming and the others would actually go back and bring Di Wentao back. It just so happened that this dirty water was poured onto them. Speaking of which, although I don't like Yin Xiangming and the others, I have to say that they are sincere towards Di Wentao. Most people would not be willing to be involved in such a situation where the situation was already hopeless. However, Yin Xiangming and the others were able to do this, which made her think highly of them. Chapter 42:57. After the news of Di Wentao's death spread, the whole thing became complicated and confusing. Even though everyone was discussing it, no one could give a definite answer. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest put this matter aside. The Di family was a certain distance away from Rome and city. Even if they rushed over immediately after hearing the news, they would need some time. Furthermore, Wu Wenfeng had promised that the Raging Flames sect would not dare to cause trouble for them if they stayed. Junior Sister Bailey, you just arrived in the upper realm. I think there are some things that I need to explain to you. After going through this incident, they could be considered to have gone through thick and thin together. Thus, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two formed a small team that trusted each other. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Then I'll have to trouble you, senior brother. Up until now, she still did not know much about the upper realm. She also did not know the difference between the upper realm and the lower realm's cultivation. Below the Star Radiance realm, we all rely on origin energy to fight. However, after breaking through the Star Radiance realm, the effects of elemental power begin to show, Wan Yanhan said slowly. Elemental power? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Her clear eyes were filled with doubt. That's right. Wan Yanhan nodded affirmatively. Elemental power has always existed. Everyone has their own innate elemental power. However, this power has not awakened below the Star Radiance realm. This power will appear after breaking through to the Star Radiance realm. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. Indeed, there were many changes between 1,000 years later and 1,000 years ago. Even the cultivation methods were different. I've always known about elemental power. However, in the lower realm, apart from a few cultivators who specially cultivated elemental martial skills, most people did not seem to pay much attention to it. That's right. However, after breaking through to the Star Radiance realm, one's elemental power will increase. As long as one grasps this direction of cultivation, one's combat power will increase. Furthermore, the limit of improvement will also increase. This is why the cultivators in the upper realm are generally stronger than those in the lower realm. This is also why only cultivators who have broken through to the Star Radiance realm can come here. Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black, beautiful eyes revealed a trace of understanding. She immediately understood. Previously, she couldn't understand why it was set at the Astral Radiance realm, but now she understood. The Purple realm and the Starlight realm. Just from the sound of it, one could tell that these were two completely different levels, and even two completely different worlds. My attribute is ice. Coincidentally, my weapon is also based on ice. Along with the inscription you drew for me, my combat strength has increased greatly. At this moment, Yi Haomiao added, that's right. My attribute is fire. My weapon also has the fire attribute. How do I know my own attributes? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. All this time, she had never thought in this direction and did not know what her talent attribute was. Little junior sister, you don't have to worry about this. Cultivators can use the attribute stone to test their own attributes. It will accurately determine your innate attribute and awaken it. It just so happens that in a few days, it will be the day for the new disciples to report in. You're also considered a new disciple this time. At that time, you will be able to test your innate attribute with them. Chapter 42:58. You don't know this, but every year when a new disciple joins the sect, almost everyone goes to watch the show when the innate attributes are tested. The more powerful the innate attribute, the higher the future achievements. If you can awaken an extremely powerful attribute, your status in the Fiery Flames sect will be extraordinary. Yi Haomiao had a smile on his face as if he was watching the show. Speaking of which, this is the most important thing for a cultivator after reaching the Starlight Realm. How many attributes are there in total? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. You're talking about the 5 basic attributes. These attributes are the most common. Other than that, there's also wind, thunder, ice, light, and darkness. Wan Yanhan is the ice attribute. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, indicating that she understood. These attributes are all attributes that exist in nature. Each attribute has its own characteristics, and cultivators of different attributes have different combat styles. Among them, metal, fire, ice, and thunder are the most powerful and have shocking destructive power. Wood attribute cultivators are good at entanglement, while water and earth attribute cultivators are good at defense. Wind elemental cultivators are good at speed, while ice elemental cultivators are more destructive than water elemental cultivators. They can both attack and defend. Generally speaking, cultivators with the strongest combat strength are those with the destructive attribute. However, wood and water attribute cultivators are usually more popular. This was because their attributes had some healing properties. In the absence of a doctor, they could play a certain role. When going out to fight, there were many times when their help was needed. In addition, their attack power wasn't very strong. So many people were willing to be friends with them. As for Wanyan Han and I, we're basically violent maniacs. We're not very popular. Yi Hao Miao spread out his hands with a helpless expression. Senior brother Wanyan is of the ice attribute. Ice is water. Don't tell me it doesn't have any healing effect? Wanyan Han smiled faintly. The ice attribute has more offensive power than the water attribute, but it also has less healing power. It can only be said that the heavens are fair. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. I see. I understand now. However, you said so much. Why didn't you mention the dark and light attributes? She did not understand the power of light, but she was very curious about the power of darkness. After all, Di Beichun had received the inheritance of the power of darkness in the training ground. She vaguely felt that since Di Beichun could receive the inheritance of the power of darkness, it was very likely that his attribute was darkness. Even if he wasn't of the dark attribute before, he might have become one after receiving the inheritance. Speaking of these two attributes, it's a bit complicated. Wanyan Han couldn't help but say, "You should have some understanding of the dark attribute. You've already come into contact with it when you were training, right?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Not bad. Then you should know how terrifying the destructive power of the dark forces is. Furthermore, they can summon skeletons. Needless to say, with such combat power, they're definitely overlords. However, after what had happened in the past, everyone did not have a good impression of the power of darkness. Furthermore, the inheritance of darkness had basically disappeared in the river of history." Chapter 4259. It's true that dark energy cultivators rarely appear, but I think it might be because these cultivators know that dark energy isn't popular, so they don't show it. Yi Haomiao shrugged. Speaking of which, the cultivators who awaken the dark energy are quite unlucky. Actually, they didn't do anything wrong. It's just that this energy isn't popular and they don't know how to use it, so it's very difficult for them to improve. It can't be helped. Wanyan Han nodded. They originally had a bright future, but after awakening the dark energy, there's less room for improvement. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown when she heard that. She didn't think that the cultivators in the upper realm would dislike the dark energy so much. When she was in the lower realm, she had also sensed this, but it was not too obvious. In their opinion, as long as they could become stronger, it didn't matter what type of energy they had. However, it seemed that it was very difficult for dark energy cultivators to improve in the upper realm. If that was the case, wouldn't Beichin be in a lot of trouble? A trace of worry quietly appeared in her pitch-black phoenix eyes. This wasn't a situation she wanted to see. Beichin had always been favored by the heavens. In addition, he now had the destined constitution, so his cultivation speed was far from being comparable to ordinary cultivators. If he was affected because of this, it would be too tragic. If these cultivators hide their dark energy, what attribute do they use to show others? Bailey Hongzhuang asked, puzzled. Wanyan Han pursed his lips and said helplessly, "In the upper realm, there are some cultivators who can awaken their elemental talents." Bailey Hongzhuang was astonished. Can awaken their elemental talents? Wanyan Han nodded. That's right. Just like how some people can't cultivate when they're born, some cultivators can awaken their elemental talents. However, these cultivators are very tragic. Once they awaken their elemental talents, their combat power will increase greatly. If they can't awaken their elemental talents, it means that they've lost this huge advantage. When they face cultivators who have awakened their elemental talents, they'll be at a disadvantage. In my opinion, the cultivators who have awakened the dark energy might be hiding among these cultivators who can awaken their elemental talents. I think so too, Yi Haomiao agreed. Actually, there are still many people who can awaken their elemental talents, but their situation isn't too bad. Even though there is still a gap between them and cultivators who have awakened their elemental talents, cultivators who have reached the astral boundary have decent battle prowess. They have no problem protecting themselves. However, it would be difficult for them to become famous in the martial arts world. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were distant and complicated. She was not unfamiliar with this feeling. Thinking back to when she was in the general's residence, she was very familiar with this feeling. It was definitely not a good feeling. If Beichun, that he's elemental talents. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but think. According to Di Beichun's temperament, she was afraid that he would not hide it. It was just that the power of darkness was so restricted in the upper realm. It was really difficult to develop it. It was just that he didn't know what kind of inheritance Beichun had obtained from the darkness relic, and whether it would change the situation. Chapter 4260. Now that there was finally a change, she really didn't want such a thing to happen again. That was something none of them wanted to see. Junior sister, what are you thinking about? Wang Yanhan couldn't help but ask when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang fall in her own thoughts after hearing the news about the dark force. Hearing Wang Yanhan's words, Bailey Hongzhuang came back to her senses and immediately said, "Nothing. I was just thinking that the dark force was so powerful in our eyes in the lower realm. I didn't expect it to be like this in the upper realm. It's undeniable that the dark force is really powerful. It's precisely because it's powerful that it's feared by everyone. Although everyone disdains the dark force when it's mentioned, we all know that the dark force is powerful and its means are terrifying. If the inheritance of the dark force hadn't disappeared in the Great War back then, the dark force cultivators would definitely be extremely powerful. Yes, in fact, it's not that the dark force is bad. It's just that they're more unlucky. It just so happens that everyone rejects the dark force. Miss Bailey, from the looks of it, you don't look like you'll awaken the dark force. You don't have to worry." Yi Haomiao saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had a lot on her mind and thought that she was worried that she would be unlucky, so he comforted her. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said, "I understand. By the way, you mentioned the dark force. What about the light force?" "Speaking of the light force, it's another story." Wang Yanhan smiled faintly and said, "I'm all ears." The light force can be said to be the most sought-after power in the upper realm. Every cultivator who awakens the light force has a very high status, because light is what everyone yearns for. Moreover, the light force itself is very powerful. Most importantly, it's a power that has a large range of effects. During battle, the light force cultivators can even use some methods to increase the strength of the cultivators in their team. In a group battle, it's simply a blessing for their teammates. In that case, the light attribute cultivators should be very popular, right? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and said, "Of course." Wang Yanhan replied, "Among all the cultivators of the light attribute cultivators are the most popular. However, the number of cultivators who awaken the light attribute is also the least." "Why is that?" Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. "Everything has a law of balance. Logically speaking, the number of cultivators of each attribute should be about the same." Yi Haomiao shook his hand. "This matter isn't that simple. Back then, when the power of darkness was rampant, the ones who destroyed the inheritance of darkness were cultivators of the light attribute. These two attributes were supposed to restrain each other. It was just that the battle back then was really terrifying. Although the inheritance of the power of darkness was destroyed, the inheritance of the power of light was also lost. Although the power of light is still highly sought after, due to the issue of the lost inheritance, The improvement has been limited to a certain extent. However, this is still a very glorious attribute. Chapter 42:61. Only a part of the inheritance of the power of light has been lost. Actually, the cultivators of the power of light are also very powerful. If they hadn't been lost, they would probably be even more powerful now. It's strange. Perhaps it really is a balance between heaven and earth. There are very few cultivators of the dark attribute now, but there are also very few cultivators of the light attribute. It's really surprising. In the entire House of Flames, there's only one cultivator of the power of light. She's the center of attention here. Yi Hao Miao smiled. There's only one person? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes widened. Although she hadn't been in the House of Flames for long and didn't know much about the situation here, she could tell from what she had seen that the number of cultivators in the House of Flames was very shocking. However, there was only one person among so many cultivators. Wasn't this ratio a little too small? Little junior sister, you must be very surprised by this, right? Wang Yanhan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's expression and couldn't help but chuckle. To think that I had the same reaction when I first found out. This ratio really makes one sigh. According to this ratio, cultivators of the power of light should belong to a kind of religious existence. That's right. Yi Hao Miao raised his right hand. Miss Bailey, you've really hit the nail on the head. Now, as soon as a cultivator of the light attribute appears, they'll be immediately recruited by everyone. If a force doesn't have a cultivator of the light attribute holding the fort, it'll be very awkward. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. This situation was really hard to imagine. Miss Bailey, previously when we were dealing with Di Wentao, the power you displayed suppressed the group of people. Come to think of it, the feeling you gave off during battle is somewhat similar to the characteristics of the power of light. The only difference is that you weaken the opponent's strength, while the cultivator of the light attribute increases the battle power of our side. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. That's just a kind of aura. It has nothing to do with the attribute. Even after Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the house, she was still thinking about this matter. Master, what are you thinking about? Baishir sat beside Bailey Hongzhuang. Are you worried about Beichun? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I didn't expect that after coming to the upper realm, the situation would be like this. If Beichun knew about this, I'm sure his feelings would be very complicated. Actually, I think that if Beichun is really a disciple of the Di family, with such a background, so what if he awakens the dark attribute? Baishir stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. Awakening the dark attribute in a situation of isolation and helplessness was indeed a helpless thing, but if there was enough background, then there was nothing to fear. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang rubbed Baishir's soft fur. At present, although we feel that this is very likely, we can't be completely sure. Only in the future when we go to the Di family will we know. I hope that Beichun will come with Ao Lingxiao. Without Ao Lingxiao leading the way, it'll be very difficult for us to find the Di family. Moreover, if Beichun is really a disciple of the Di family, we don't know what the current situation of the Di family is. If someone wants to harm Beichun and use this point to make an issue out of it, it'll be troublesome. Chapter 42:62. White Lion, who had originally been rather optimistic, fell silent after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Indeed, there were too many uncertain factors. No one knew what the situation would be until the end. Master, perhaps Beichun's awakened power is not the dark attribute. Xiaobai also came over. Perhaps the situation is not as bad as we think. I hope so. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. However, she felt that Di Beichun had obtained the inheritance of the dark attribute when so many people had fought for it. This point alone was enough to prove many things. She was not someone who worried for nothing, but she was also not blindly optimistic. There were indeed many signs in this. However, things would cross that bridge when they came to it. No matter what the situation was, she believed that there would always be a solution. Furthermore, it would be fine as long as they were together. Even if the road ahead was difficult, so what? There was still nearly half a month before the new disciples' competition. During this period, Bailey Hongzhuang cultivated peacefully in the Blazing Flames sect. Now, Many people were filled with curiosity about her. In addition, the D family could come knocking at her door at any time. She did not want to cause any unnecessary trouble, so she simply stayed in the house and did not go out. At the moment, she did not know her own attributes, so she could not research in this area. However, Bailey Hongzhuang put more of her experience in the newly opened stone room. Speaking of which, this stone room had been open for quite a long time, but she had not been able to figure out the use of the method written on it. After comprehending for a long time, she vaguely felt that it was related to the desert world and the ocean world that she had explored. However, as for the specific relationship, she felt that she was about to comprehend it, but there was still some distance between them. What does this have to do with the desert world and the ocean world? This is really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang looked puzzled. All along, she had felt that her comprehension was not bad. However, she had not expected that after comprehending for so long this time, she still could not completely comprehend it. This made her feel somewhat helpless. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was deep in thought, there was a sudden knock on the door. As she opened the door, she saw Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao as expected. However, after noticing their complicated expressions, she couldn't help but ask, "The D family is here?" Wang Yanhan nodded slightly. "Not bad. They've just arrived in Rong'an City, and they're already on their way to the Raging Flames sect. I'm afraid there will be trouble soon. Fortunately, we are in the Blazing Flames school. Even if they come, they won't dare to attack us directly." A complicated look flashed across Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, but her expression was very calm. "Don't worry too much. Steward Wu has already promised us. He will naturally appear when the D family comes." "I hope so." The worry in Yi Haomiao's eyes did not disappear. "This matter is still a little worrying. I don't know if the D family will exert pressure. If Steward Wu can't handle it, it will be terrible." Wang Yanhan shook his head and said, "I don't think so. That would be underestimating the Raging Flames sect's ability. Although the D family has a certain level of strength, they can't challenge the Raging Flames sect in Rome and City. It will be fine as long as Steward Wu doesn't change his mind." Chapter 4263. Not long after Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came out, the D family cultivators, led by Yin Xiangming and the others, walked into the Fiery Flames sect in a grandiose manner. Many people from the D family came this time. One look and I can tell that they are not weak. I'm afraid Wang Yanhan and the others are in trouble now. That's right. They should have expected this outcome when the incident happened. Now that they have chosen to stay in the Fiery Flame sect, aren't they waiting for them to come knocking on their door? I'm afraid there will be a show to watch today. Judging from the D family's lineup, they will not rest until they kill Wang Yanhan and the other two. Such a huge commotion immediately attracted a large number of cultivators, especially after seeing the other party's grandiose lineup. Everyone could not help but exclaim inwardly. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two, who were standing nearby, naturally noticed this scene as well. Their expressions could not help but change. It seems that the D family values Di Wentao quite a lot. They actually sense so many people. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her long, shapely eyebrows slightly. She crossed her arms in front of her chest with a somewhat playful expression. Wang Yanhan's gaze was solemn. I'm afraid they're not only doing this for Di Wentao, but also for their family's reputation. After all, they dared to kill Di Wentao, which means that they're not taking them seriously. Naturally, they are here to teach them a lesson. Yin Xiangming and the other two are really concerned about this matter. I'm afraid that they have already received the D family the moment they arrived. Yi Haomiao looked at Yin Xiangming and the other two with an unfriendly gaze. These guys were really too detestable. They have always been like this. Now that they are worried that the D family will blame them for this, they are naturally even more anxious. Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. In fact, Yin Xiangming and the other two were indeed thinking this way. They knew very well that Di Wentao had died in front of them. To put it bluntly, he had been angered to death by them. If they had not told Di Wentao that Bailey Hongzhuang had stayed in the Fiery Flame sect, Di Wentao would not have died. What they were most worried about now was others discovering this, so they could only think of ways to divert all the contradictions to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After seeing Wang Yanhan and the other two, Yin Xiangming couldn't help but say, "It's them. They were the ones who crippled Wen Tao's cultivation, causing his death." As soon as Yin Xiangming finished speaking, the cultivators of the D family immediately locked their gazes on Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. Their gazes also became hostile. "It's you guys?" The aura of the leader of the D family men immediately rose. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were shocked to discover that the other party's cultivation level was at least at the 8th level of the Star Radiance realm. A cultivator with such a cultivation base would definitely have an extremely shocking combat strength. Faced with the other party's questioning, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two did not cower. They simply stood where they were and nodded. Since everyone knew about this, they naturally couldn't deny it. However, after seeing their attitude, the other party could not help but become even angrier. "I am D Wen Tao's elder brother. My name is Devaus. You killed Wen Tao, so I want you to pay with your blood." As soon as he finished speaking, the other party wanted to attack them with his palm. Upon seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two quickly retreated and avoided the other party's attack range. Wu Zhe. Chapter 4264. Hearing the words of the person behind him, Di Wuze finally stopped what he was doing. He gloomily glanced at Wang Yanhan and the other two before coldly saying, "I'll let you off for now. But just you wait, I'll definitely make you pay with your blood." As soon as the voice fell, the cultivators of the D family all glared at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two fiercely, and then continued to walk into the Raging Flames Gate. Yin Xiangming and the other two were also gloating. They had suffered at the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two, but now that the D family was here, they could completely turn the tables. Judging by their behavior, they should be looking for Steward Wu, Yi Haomiao said unhurriedly as he watched Yin Xiangming lead the D family cultivators in. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was slightly cold. "Let them go. Steward Wu will naturally deal with it." Wang Yanhan nodded. "However, judging by their attitude, I am afraid that they will not give up so easily. This will depend on Steward Wu's ability. The Fiery Flame sect is huge. Since he made a promise to us previously, he will naturally be able to fulfill it." Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. As the steward here, Steward Wu naturally knew the situation in the upper world better than they did. It seemed that Steward Wu had already weighed the pros and cons before recruiting her. Since he had agreed, he naturally had the ability to fulfill all of this. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao exchanged a look and then nodded. "Then we will leave this to Steward Wu to worry about." Those three fellows did not run away. They actually dared to stay in the Fiery Flame sect. They are really bold. Devao's expression was gloomy, especially when he saw the other party's nonchalant expression after seeing them. He felt even more displeased. Yin Xiangming then said, "Steward Wu seems to be very protective of them. Previously, when Wen Tao was here, Steward Wu gave the title of team leader to Wang Yanhan. Because of this, Wen Tao has always been very unhappy, so he has always tried to think of ways to snatch back the title of team leader. However, in the end, Wang Yanhan took the opportunity to destroy his cultivation level. Damn it, Devao's clenched his fists. What did Wen Tao do wrong? Why did Steward Wu give the title of team leader to someone else? Di Wen Tao was his biological brother. He had originally planned to let Di Wen Tao stay here for a few years before returning. He had not expected that he would lose his life here. I don't know. Yin Xiaoming shook his head. That Wang Yanhan is a cultivator from the lower realms. He should have been at the bottom of the hierarchy in the Raging Flame School. However, his cultivation talent is not bad and his speed of growth is very fast. Steward Wu might have seen that he was improving very quickly, so he did this. This guy really thinks he's a typesetter just because he's given a little bit of face. Does he think he's anything in the upper realm with his meager abilities? Devao snorted. He had the guts to attack a member of the D family. He must have had a death wish. Yin Xiaoming nodded repeatedly. Big Brother Wu Zhe, You must kill them to avenge Wen Tao. Otherwise, Wen Tao will not die in peace. Chapter 4265. Yin Xiangming and the other two were relieved when they heard DeVo's words. The Di family trusted them. As long as they insisted that Di Wen Tao's death was caused by Wang Yanhan and the other two, they would not have to worry about being implicated. Before long, Yin Xiangming and the Di family arrived at Steward Wu's place. Big Brother Wu, Steward Wu is in this house. You can find him yourselves. It will be inconvenient for us to enter, Yin Xiangming said flatteringly. All right, DeVo's nodded. You can wait nearby. We will find Steward Wu and ask for an explanation. Yes. DeVo's knocked on the door immediately. Even though he was in a bad mood, his knocking was extremely loud. Bang, bang, bang. Wu Wenfeng was well informed. He had already received the news when the Di family's cultivators had arrived at the Blazing Flame sect. When he heard the unhappy knocking on the door, he naturally knew who it was. Please come in. Just as Di Wuzo was about to enter the room, his senior suddenly grabbed his hand and said with a deep voice, "Restrain yourself a little when you go in later. No matter what, this person is still a steward of the Blazing Flame sect. You can't show your temper in the clan." DeVo's could not help but frown when he heard that. However, he still nodded. A powerful dragon could not defeat a snake in its old haunts. Although the Di family had some power, they naturally had to restrain themselves now that they had arrived at the Blazing Flame sect. After entering the house, the elder of the Di family, Di Sudong, greeted him with a smile. Steward Wu. Wu Wenfeng also greeted him with a smile. Brother Di, I apologize for not coming out to greet you. Di Sudong cupped his fists. Steward Wu is usually busy with official business. We're the ones who have disturbed you today. What are you talking about? Wu Wenfeng smiled faintly. Please take a seat. I will get someone to serve you tea. DeVo's could not hold back his thoughts and wanted to get straight to the point. However, Di Sudong had already signaled him not to be anxious with his eyes. Thus, he could only hold back and not ask. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Di Sudong slowly said, Steward Wu, you should know why we are here today, right? Hearing Du Sudong's words, Wu Wenfeng sighed in his heart. Du Sudong had finally gotten to the point. If I'm not wrong, you're here for Di Wen Tao, right? Di Sudong nodded slightly. Wen Tao is a direct descendant of the Di family, yet he was killed in Roman City. As his family, we naturally have to seek justice. I understand your thoughts. Wu Wenfeng sighed. Steward Wu, it's good that you understand. DeVo's could no longer hold himself back. The culprits are in your Blazing Flame school right now. I hope you can hand them over to us. Young Master Di, what do you plan to do? Of course we have to kill them. My younger brother died in their hands. If we let them live in this world, how will we explain it to my dead brother? DeVo's eyes flickered with a ruthless glint. As he thought about those fellows, his heart burned with fury. He hated that he could not take their lives right now. Di Sudong did not say anything. He only looked at Wu Wenfeng, wanting to know what kind of answer he would give. Chapter 4266. Young Master Di, I'm afraid. I can't agree to this. Wu Wenfeng looked like he was in a difficult position. However, he was just pretending. After all, he had to give the Di family some face, even if he wanted to refuse. Upon hearing Wu Wenfeng's words, the expressions of the Di family's cultivators turned ugly all of a sudden. What? DeVo's asked hurriedly. They're all disciples of the school of Raging Flames. It's our responsibility to protect them here, Wu Wenfeng said slowly. My brother is also a disciple of the Inferno sect. Why didn't you protect him? DeVo's asked. Wu Zhe, Di Sudong shouted angrily. DeVo's looked at him and shut his mouth. Steward Wu, Wu Zhe is also immersed in grief. That's why he spoke so rashly. I hope you can forgive him, Di Sudong said calmly. Wu Wenfeng nodded and waved his hand. Understand. Under such circumstances, it's inevitable that young Master Di would feel this way. Steward Wu, to be honest, we came here specially to avenge Wen Tao. Your answer is really hard for us to accept. Brother Di, I understand how you feel. However, you should also know that internal conflicts between disciples of the Inferno sect, such as injuries and deaths, are unavoidable. Di Wen Tao and Wang Yanhan have always been rivals. They have had many conflicts and Wang Yanhan has often been injured. However, the situation this time was more serious and Di Wintao died because of it. I know that this is hard for you to accept, but it doesn't violate the rules of the Inferno sect. Furthermore, they're disciples of the Inferno sect. If they have a conflict with our own disciples, we naturally won't interfere. However, if outsiders are involved, the situation will be different. Brother Di, I believe you understand this. I understand. Di Sudong nodded. When DeVows heard Di Sudong's words, he couldn't help but feel anxious. Second Uncle Yu. Di Sudong glared at DeVows. His gaze was stern and intimidating, forcefully suppressing the words that DeVows was about to say. Manager Wu, I understand what you're saying. However, I've heard that this Wang Yanhan is only a cultivator from the lower realm. If he has a strong background, I can understand why you would make such a choice. However, he has no background. Even if you hand the three of them over to us, it won't affect anything. Di Sudong narrowed his eyes. He understood that Wu Wenfeng had been talking to him in a bureaucratic tone. He was very clear about how to deal with this kind of situation. Wu Wenfeng would definitely not offend the Di family for a person without any background, even if he had some talent for cultivation. Upon hearing Di Sudong's words, Wu Wenfeng also understood that if he did not make things clear, the Di family would definitely not give up today. When he thought of this, he could not help but say, Brother Di, to be honest, I would not have stepped forward to protect them in the past. However, the situation is different now. What's the difference? You should know that offending an inscription master is not a wise move. There's only one inscription master in Rome and city, so the Inferno sect is restricted to a certain extent. Chapter 4267. After hearing Wu Wenfeng's words, Di Sudong could not help but frown. Inscription master? Wu Wenfeng nodded slightly. That's right. As far as I know, the only inscription master in Rome and city is Cheng Zonghao. What does Manager Wu mean? Could it be that Master Cheng is related to Wang Yanhan and wants to protect them? Di Sudong's thoughts were complicated. If that was the case, then this matter would be difficult to handle. After all, an inscription master's influence was not small. Cheng Zonghao had been in Rome and city for so many years and had a lot of connections. If they did not give him any face, it would not be easy to end the matter. However, Wu Wenfeng shook his head. It's not Master Cheng. Then who is it? DeVows asked. He could not understand why Wang Yanhan, a cultivator from the lower realm, would have an inscription master backing him up. This was too strange. No wonder Wang Yanhan dared to attack Di Wintao after knowing his background. It turned out that he had such a layer of confidence. She is Wang Yanhan's junior sister and is also an inscription master. I believe you already knew about this before you came. I did not deliberately go against you. That's why I recruited his junior sister into the Raging Flames sect. It's because her identity as an inscription master is very important to the Raging Flames sect. Following Wu Wenfeng's words, all the Di family cultivators present could not help but be stunned. They looked at Wu Wenfeng in astonishment and wondered if they had heard wrongly. Manager Wu, did I hear wrongly? Are you talking about Wang Yanhan's junior sister? Di Sudong could not remain calm at this moment. An inscription master was an extremely powerful person. He had seen Wang Yanhan just now. He was so young. As for his junior sister, she was even younger. How could such a young lady be an inscription master? Although I know it sounds unbelievable, I'm telling the truth. Wu Wenfeng looked serious. He did not want to fall out with the Di family. It was undoubtedly best to let the other party understand the reason and scruples he had. When I first heard this news, I also found it unbelievable. However, she later proved everything to me personally. The cultivators of the Di family fell silent for a moment. DeVows only felt that he had heard the funniest joke after hearing all this. Steward Wu, even if you want to deceive us, shouldn't you find a more believable explanation? When we came over just now, we already saw Wang Yanhan and the others. The girl beside him should be his junior sister. So young and inexperienced. You actually said that she is an inscription master? This is impossible, DeVows said with certainty. He knew too well how difficult it was to become an inscription master. If it was a middle-aged man, he might believe it. But such a young girl was simply a fantasy. At this moment, even Di Sudong did not stop DeVows. In fact, he also felt that what DeVows said was very reasonable. No one would believe this at all. Young Master D, I am explaining the reason to you. Are you saying that I am lying to you? Chapter 4268. Upon seeing the change in Wu Wenfeng's attitude and DeVows' expression, Di Sudong hurriedly said, Steward Wu, that's not what Wu Zhe meant. If that's not what he meant, then what did he mean? Wu Wenfeng stood up, displeasure written all over his solemn face. I'm telling you the whole story because of you. However, if you don't believe me, then I have nothing to say. Di Sudong frowned slightly, his gaze turning gloomy. Steward Wu, it's not that we don't believe you, but this reason is really difficult for us to accept. Forget it if you don't accept it. Wu Wenfeng's expression was icy, and his eyes were filled with a cold glint. Anyway, they're disciples of the raging Inferno sect. No one could do anything to them here. If anyone from the outside dares to cause trouble in the raging Inferno sect, that would be equivalent to challenging the entire raging Inferno sect. I'm sure you know what we will do. Someone send them off. Wu Wenfeng said coldly and turned around after sending them off. Obviously, he was unwilling to say anything more to the D family's cultivators. He had originally wanted to talk nicely so that both parties would not fall out. However, he could not be bothered to say anything else after seeing their attitude. He did not believe that the D family would be so courageous as to oppose the raging Inferno sect in Rome and City. Seeing Wu Wenfeng's attitude, the expressions of Di Sudong and the others turned ugly. They wanted to say something, but the other party had already said so much. If they continued to say anything, they would really lose face. Let's go. Di Sudong snorted coldly, stood up, and walked out of the house without hesitation. DeVows and the others also glared angrily at Wu Wenfeng's retreating figure before walking out one after another. Their hearts were filled with extreme anger. Yin Xiangming and the other two had been waiting outside the house not far away. The three of them were rubbing their palms together, waiting to find trouble with Wang Yanhan and the other two later. Now that the D family's people are here, Steward Wu will not protect Wang Yanhan and the others under such circumstances. Let's just wait and watch the show later. Big Brother Wu Zhe is very powerful. Wang Yanhan was so arrogant in front of us previously. I want to see if he can still be so arrogant in front of Big Brother Wu Zhe. Who asked that guy to be so stupid to not leave after such a thing happened? Isn't he just courting death by staying here? As the three of them were discussing how they were going to teach Wang Yanhan and the others a lesson, DeVows and the others walked out of the house. Seeing this, the three of them immediately went up to him. Big Brother Wu Zhe, what did Steward Wu say? Did he decide to chase Wang Yanhan and the others out of the raging Inferno sect? Yin Xiangming's face was filled with anticipation. He was waiting to hear the good news that he had been waiting for. However, what he received in return was Di Wu's cold face. DeVows had already been unhappy because of Wu Wenfeng's attitude. Now that Yin Xiangming had asked him his question, he felt even more embarrassed. Almost everyone believed that they would teach Wang Yanhan a lesson when they came in such a grandiose manner. However, Wu Wenfeng did not allow them to do so. It was needless to say how embarrassing this was. The most abominable thing was that this was Rome and City. They did not dare to have a direct conflict with the raging Inferno sect. At the thought of this, he had nowhere to vent his anger. Chapter 4269. Hearing DeVows' words, Yin Xiangming and the other two could not help but be stunned. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. Brother Wu Zhe, what do you mean? What else could it mean? DeVows glanced at the three of them. Your steward Wu has been speaking in a bureaucratic manner. He actually said that they were disciples of the Blazing Flame School and that the Blazing Flame School had the responsibility to protect them. Ha, what a joke. Yin Xiangming and the other two were all dumbfounded when they heard this. They looked at each other in disbelief, unable to believe that this was actually true. That's impossible. Similar things have happened before. I've never seen Steward Wu so protective of the other party. That's because Wang Yanhan is capable. He's just a cultivator from the lower world with no background. Just from this point alone, we can tell that Wanyan Han is capable. Davao's eyes were cold and ruthless. I really underestimated this guy. He's quite capable. Then what do we do now? Are we going to let them go just like that? Yin Xiaoming could not help but feel anxious. None of them had expected Steward Wu to be so protective of Wanyan Han. However, they had always been enemies with Wanyan Han. If they could not get rid of Wanyan Han this time, wouldn't they be in trouble in the Blazing Flame School in the future? Impossible, Davao said angrily. His eyes were burning with fury. Wen Tao died because of him. I'll never let them go. Even if they're capable today, and we can attack them in the Blazing Flame School, I don't believe that they can stay in the Blazing Flame School forever. As long as they come out, they won't be in the Blazing Flame School's territory. So what if I kill them? At this moment, Di Sudong also spoke up. These three young people are indeed quite capable. Although I don't know why Steward Wu would do this, with his confidence, I'm afraid it's really impossible to make a move in the Blazing Flames sect. Second uncle, I'll wait in Rong City. I'll definitely get my chance. Di Sudong nodded slightly. Let's discuss this properly after we leave. We must avenge Wen Tao. Wei Li Hongzhuang and the others were standing not far from the Blazing Flame School's exit. However, they did not look worried at all. On the contrary, they looked like they were waiting to watch a good show. Look, they're here. Wei Li Hongzhuang raised her chin, indicating the direction where Davao's and the others were coming from. Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao looked in the direction that Wei Li Hongzhuang was pointing. As expected, the Di family's cultivators were gradually approaching. Wow, their expressions don't look too good. Yi Haomiao raised his eyebrows and laughed. A smile also appeared on Wanyan Han's face. Looks like Steward Wu really did what he promised us. At the same time, Yin Xiangming and the rest also noticed Wei Li Hongzhuang and the other two. Their originally gloomy faces became even more gloomy. Look, the Di family's cultivators have come out. Wanyan Han and the others are too bold. Instead of hiding, they actually came out to welcome them. Who knows? I think they're crazy. Let's wait for a good show. There's really a good show to watch now. The Blazing Flame School's cultivators watched this scene curiously. This was the most attention-grabbing event recently. As Yin Xiangming and the rest slowly walked in front of Wanyan Han and the other two, the atmosphere between them dropped to the freezing point. Chapter 4270. Looking at Wanyan Han now, Yin Xiangming felt even angrier. This guy was obviously relying on Steward Wu's protection and deliberately came to watch the show. Hearing this, Wanyan Han's smile became even brighter. I'll wait for you to settle the score with me slowly. Davao's took a step forward. His fist was obviously about to hit Di Xianyan. However, Wei Li Hongzhuang's voice suddenly rang out. Young Master Di, I think you don't seem to understand the rules of the Raging Flames sect. If you dare to fight here, you'll be an enemy of the Raging Flames sect. I advise you not to be impulsive. After hearing Wei Li Hongzhuang's words, Davao's couldn't help but withdraw his clenched fist. His expression became even more ferocious. What an arrogant girl. I'm not a girl, but... Wei Li Hongzhuang paused. I'm arrogant. What can you do to me? The moment he said this, Di Wuzi became even angrier. You, Di Sudong grabbed Davao's uncontrollable fist and stood in front of Davao's. He looked straight at Wei Li Hongzhuang with a serious and cold gaze. Little girl, you're new here. It's better to keep a low profile. Uncle, I'll return the same words to you. It's better to keep a low profile in other people's territory. Di Sudong's expression also darkened. He looked at Wei Li Hongzhuang with an even more unfriendly gaze. Second uncle, this girl really needs to be taught a lesson. Wanyan Han looked coldly at Davao's. It's not up to you to decide whether she needs to be taught a lesson or not. Forget it. Let's go first. Di Sudong's voice was cold. He looked at Wanyan Han and the other two with an extremely gloomy gaze. The depths of his eyes were filled with killing intent. Seeing this, although Davao's was extremely unwilling, he could only nod. He said coldly to Wei Li Hongzhuang and the other two, we'll ride a donkey and read a songbook. Let's wait and see. Take care. Yi Haomiao waved his hand with a bright smile. Umph. The Di family's people angrily walked past Wei Li Hongzhuang and the others. Although they still looked very powerful, they felt a lot weaker than when they first arrived. The disciples of the Raging Flames sect were dumbfounded when they saw the D family leave quietly. They looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two in a completely different light. It can't be. The D family came to look for you personally, but you left with your tail between your legs? From the looks of it, Manager Wu must be very protective of them. I don't think so. What kind of a witching potion did the three of them feed Manager Wu? He would rather offend the D family to protect the three of them? For a moment, everyone felt that the world had changed. Such an inconceivable thing could actually happen. It was simply too terrifying. Thinking about the D family's faces just now, I feel so good. Yi Hao Miao could not help but clench his fists. His face was filled with excitement. And Yin Xiangming and the others. They used to be so arrogant when they saw us, but today they were all terrified. How delightful. Wang Yanhan also smiled. He patted Yi Hao Miao's shoulder and said, "It was all because of me in the past. You also suffered a lot from them. We're all brothers. Why are you being so formal with me?" Yi Hao Miao shook his head. "We share blessings and misfortunes. Aren't we doing very well now?" On the contrary, Yin Xiangming and the others were angered to death. Chapter 4271. Ever since Chang Zonghao had seen that inscription, he had been thinking about it day and night. However, Wu Wenfeng had not come out ever since he had returned to the Raging Inferno sect. He had sent people to the trade market to ask around, but had not received any credible information. He felt very helpless about this. He desperately wanted to understand everything, but there was no way out. The only person who knew about this was Wu Wenfeng. However, Chang Zonghao knew very well that Wu Wenfeng would not tell him about this. Regarding this, he felt very helpless. Just as Chang Zonghao was vexed over this matter, his subordinate suddenly came to report. "Master Chang, I heard some news, but I'm not sure if it is true." Upon hearing this, Chang Zonghao's eyes lit up. He immediately said, "Tell me about it first." Recently, a new disciple joined the Raging Inferno sect. Her name is Bailey Hongzhuang. She has another identity, which is an inscription master. Inscription master? Chang Zonghao was astonished. Could it be that Wu Wenfeng had already recruited that inscription master into the Raging Flame school while being secretive? That's not right. Chang Zonghao frowned as he spoke. If she is an inscription master, why is she a disciple? Tell me clearly what is going on. As far as I know, Bailey Hongzhuang is only a lady in her 20s. Furthermore, she did not join as an inscription master, but as a disciple. I'm also very confused about this. However, according to the description of the Raging Inferno sect disciple, the inscription she drew was not bad and helped Wang Yanhan defeat Di Wentao. Di Wentao is the guy from the D family who died a few days ago, right? Chang Zonghao asked. That's him. Originally, everyone thought that Wang Yanhan would escape or be expelled by the Raging Inferno sect after killing him. However, the development of this matter surprised everyone. Wu Wenfeng was very protective of them, and even recruited that inscription master back to his side. On top of that, the D family's cultivators went to the Raging Inferno sect today, but were rudely chased out by Wu Wenfeng. It was obvious that he wanted to protect Wang Yanhan and the rest to the end. The subordinate felt that this situation did not seem to be in line with Wu Wenfeng's usual style. Anyone could weigh the pros and cons between the D family and a cultivator with no background. However, Wu Wenfeng still made such a decision. Moreover, the Raging Flame School didn't have any objections. This situation was worth asking. Perhaps these problems really did appear on that woman. In fact, everything changed after that woman appeared. After listening to the report, Chang Zonghao fell into deep thought. From the looks of it, this matter is indeed a little strange, Master Chang. This subordinate will continue to inquire about this matter. As long as there is reliable news, this subordinate will definitely report it as soon as possible. Wait. Chang Zonghao raised his right hand. Is there anything else, Master Chang? Did you just say that the D family's cultivators were chased out by Wu Wenfeng? That's right. It happened not long ago. All right, help me invite them back. As long as we ask them, we will be able to confirm this information. This subordinate will do it immediately. A smile appeared on Chung Zhonghao's face. Even if Wu Wenfeng tried to cover it up, he would definitely find out the truth of this matter. Chapter 4272. Di Sudong and the rest stayed in the inn after leaving the Blazing Flame sect. However, they were all filled with anger. That damned Wu Wenfeng. He is only a steward of the Blazing Flame sect. How dare he be so arrogant? How despicable. Davout's face was filled with anger as he clenched his fists. He really wanted to beat Wu Wenfeng and the three arrogant juniors to death. Wu Wenfeng must have his reasons for doing so. Our forces are not in Rome, in city, so the Blazing Flame sect will not benefit us at all, Di Sudong said after some thought. Then what should we do? Di Wuza frowned. Could it be that we have no choice but to wait outside and wait? What if they don't come out? Won't we be wasting a lot of time here? Di Sudong turned to Yin Xiaoming. Do you have a way to lure them out? They had come here with great fanfare, so they had to take revenge. If they went back just like that, they would lose face. Besides, Di Wentao's body was still warm. If they did not take revenge for him, how could they face the dead Di Wentao? Yin Xiaoming and the other two exchanged glances with complicated expressions. We will think of a way, but given the current situation, I'm afraid they won't come out so easily. Yes, if we can think of it, they can too. They are so smug because they know we can't attack them in the Blazing Flame sect. I'm afraid they won't come out no matter what we do. If that's the case, this will be troublesome. Di Sudong's expression was ugly. He knew that Yin Xiaoming and the rest were telling the truth. The other party was not stupid and could not be fooled so easily. At most, I'll just wait here. I don't believe they can stay in the Blazing Flame sect forever. They have to come out to buy things. Davao slammed his fist on the table, his eyes bloodshot. I won't go back if I don't take revenge for Wentao. At that moment, a cultivator from the Di family suddenly walked in. Second uncle, Master Chung of Rome, and City invites you over for a chat. Hearing that, Di Sudong raised his eyebrows and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Chung Zonghao, that's him. He just sent someone to invite you. Could it be that Wang Yanhan and the others are really related to Chung Zonghao? Otherwise, why would he invite me over at a time like this? Di Sudong pondered. He really couldn't figure it out. Second uncle, I'll go with you. Davouse quickly said, I'd like to see what he's going to do. Since he has already invited us, we naturally have to go and take a look. But you can't be impulsive. Chung Zonghao is an inscription grandmaster. If we anger him, it won't do us any good. He's not Wu Wenfeng. You must restrain your attitude. Do you understand? If you still don't know what's important, then I'll go on my own. Di Sudong looked at Davouse seriously. Davouse was too impulsive. Di Sudong felt helpless about his temper. Such an attitude was nothing in the Di family sphere of influence. However, they had to restrain themselves outside. Second uncle, don't worry. I won't be impulsive this time, Davouse hurriedly said. Di Sudong stared deeply at Davouse before nodding. All right, come with me to take a look. The rest of you will stay in the inn and wait for our news. Chapter 4273. Di Sudong and Davouse did not waste any time. After receiving the invitation, they headed straight to Chung Zonghao's residence. As the only inscription master in Rome and city, Chung Zonghao's residence was extremely luxurious. His wealth and status were evident everywhere. Sir, Master Chung is in the house. As Di Sudong and Davouse enter the house, Chung Zonghao's figure appeared in their line of sight. A smile appeared on their faces as they cupped their fists and said, Master Chung, it's an honor to meet you. Brother Di, young Master Di, I'm sorry for abruptly inviting you over for a chat. What are you talking about, Master Chung? It's our honor to be invited by you. Chung Zonghao smiled. Brother Di, you're too polite. If you don't mind, you could just call me Brother Chung. Calling me Master Chung is too formal. Di Sudong was a little surprised by Chung Zonghao's enthusiasm when he noticed his attitude. However, he was happy to accept the enthusiasm of an inscription master. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony, Brother Chung. Of course. Chung Zonghao smiled. Brother Di, you must have come to Rome and city this time because of Di Wentao, right? Di Sudong nodded. Wentao is a direct descendant of the Di family. This time, he was killed by a cultivator from the lower realm. Naturally, we have to avenge him. Chung Zonghao nodded. Indeed, this is too unjust. However, I heard that you went to the Blazing Flame sect today and did not succeed. Di Sudong was a little confused when he saw that Chung Zonghao was so concerned about this matter. He could not help but ask, Brother Chung, you seem to be very concerned about this matter. Upon hearing this, Chung Zonghao waved his hand, his smile still warm. I just find this matter very strange. Given the Di family's background, logically speaking, the Raging Flame sect has no reason to protect a lad with no status or background. However, I heard that this kid is quite capable and has a good cultivation talent. That's why Wu Wenfeng valued him so much. As Chung Zonghao spoke, he observed the expressions of Di Sudong and Di Sudong. After noticing the vigilance on their faces, he understood that if he did not give them a reason, they would not believe him. To tell you the truth, I've been feeling that Wu Wenfeng of the Blazing Sect has been acting a little strange recently. Coincidentally, I also heard that your matter is related to Wu Wenfeng, so I wanted to ask you about it. I see. The suspicion in Di Sudong's eyes dissipated a little. Chung Zonghao had already said so much, so he naturally wouldn't ask about the specific reason. That would be too inappropriate. It seemed that there was a conflict between Chung Zonghao and Wu Wenfeng. That was why Chung Zonghao invited them over after hearing the news. Perhaps he wanted to find fault with Wu Wenfeng. Brother Di, could you tell me the ins and outs of this matter? Chung Zonghao asked tentatively. Di Sudong was silent for a moment before he nodded. All right, even if he did not say anything, everyone would find out sooner or later. Rather than that, he might as well take this opportunity to do Chung Zonghao a favor. If he needed to use him in the future, he would still have some face. Chapter 4274. After listening to Di Sudong's narration, Chung Zonghao's eyes narrowed. Did Wu Wenfeng really say that the young lady he recruited was an inscription master? Di Sudong nodded. Wu Wenfeng did say that. Chung Zonghao's gaze kept changing. He had always felt that there was something fishy about this matter, but he could not figure out what the problem was. Now that Di Sudong had reminded him, he finally understood. Although the statement was indeed shocking, based on his understanding of Wu Wenfeng, he would definitely not have said such a ridiculous reason if there were other reasons. What he said to the Di family was probably not a lie, but the truth. If that young woman was really an inscription master, then all of these could be linked together. This would explain why Wu Wenfeng would personally come over with an inscription pattern for him to appraise. Similarly, it would also explain why he didn't come out after returning to the Blazing Flame school. Furthermore, the reason why he was so protective of Wanyan Han and the others was obvious. The value of an inscription master was indeed greater than offending the Di family. After all, the Di family's sphere of influence was very far away from them. Even if they offended them, they would not have many interactions in the future. On the contrary, an inscription master would be of great help to the Fiery Flames sect. Seeing that Chung Zonghao had fallen silent, Di Wuza could not help but say, "It's obvious that such a reason is fake." He clearly couldn't find a reason, so he came up with a reason that isn't a reason. Di Sudong's expression did not look good. When he noticed Chung Zonghao's expression, he could not help but ask, "Brother Chung, you're an inscription master in Roman City. I'm sure you know best about inscription masters. This is indeed fake, right?" Chung Zonghao thought about it and shook his head. Not necessarily. Hearing Chung Zonghao's words, Di Sudong and DeVows could not help but be stunned. The two of them looked at him in astonishment, wondering if they had heard wrongly. "Brother Chung, what do you mean? Do you think that lady could really be an inscription master?" "That's right." Chung Zonghao nodded. "Previously, Wu Wenfeng asked me to appraise an inscription pattern. I asked him who drew it, but he did not tell me. However, it was on that day that he seemed to have recruited that woman into the Blazing Flame school. Now, that he put everything together, perhaps what he said was true. After all, since he has the guts to protect Wanyan Han and the rest, there is naturally no need for him to make up such a lie to deceive you. But we've seen that girl. She's too young. No matter how I look at her, she doesn't look like an inscription master." DeVows quickly said. Di Sudong also had a complicated expression on his face. This kind of situation was really hard to believe. "Actually, I've heard some news about this before. At that time, I thought so too. But now, it seems that all of this might be true, because only in this way can everything be connected. Chung Zhonghao's mind was also constantly thinking. Previously, he had always felt that this news was unreliable, but now that things had developed to this point, it was time for him to meet that young woman. Chapter 4275. Master Chung. That girl doesn't look like an inscription master at all. Furthermore, based on what we saw, she is clearly just an ordinary disciple of the Blazing Flame sect. Di Wuzi simply couldn't believe it. This was not something that he didn't want to believe. No matter who saw Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, they wouldn't believe it. This was simply a fantasy, Chung Zonghao glanced at Di Wuzi before he turned to Di Sudong and said, Brother Di, you are actually a sensible person. You should understand that there is no need for Wu Wenfeng to lie to you at this time. Di Sudong nodded. Brother Chung, you're right. If it weren't for you reminding me, I would have overlooked this point. If this is really the case, then this girl is really surprising. Di Sudong sighed. If the other party was really an inscription master, then this would indeed be troublesome for them. Brother Di, you don't have to be too anxious. I will think of a way to investigate this matter, said Chung Zonghao. Then I will have to trouble you, Brother Chung. I hope you can let me know after you confirm it. Don't worry. After the Di family cultivators left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two returned to the house to cultivate. They had already made up their minds to stay in the Blazing Flame sect for the next few days. They knew that the Di family would definitely not let this matter rest. If they went out now, what awaited them would definitely be an ambush. However, the truth was just as they had expected. Yin, Xiangming, and the other two started to think of ways to find fault with them after they returned. Wan Yanhan, what kind of ability do you think you have by being so cowardly? Do you think you can do it with Steward Wu's protection? Yin Xiangming was also filled with anger at the moment. Ever since the incident that day, he had felt extremely aggrieved during this period of time. Ever since he had joined the Blazing Flame sect, he had never been so sullen. This feeling was simply unbearable and almost drove him crazy. Now that the reinforcements had finally arrived, he could not take action. One could imagine how sullen he felt. In the face of Yin Xiangming's anger, Wan Yanhan was extremely calm. That's right. We have Steward Wu's protection. Why? Are you not convinced? What kind of ability are you hiding here? If you have the ability, then follow me outside. Yin Xiangming said angrily. Yi Haomiao chuckled. Why would I go outside with you? One-on-one. If you want to fight me one-on-one, you don't have to go outside. We can fight here. However, if you want us to lure the Di family out, I'm sorry, but we're not that stupid. As he spoke, Yi Haomiao couldn't help but look at Wan Yanhan. His eyes were filled with speechlessness. In the past, I only felt that this guy, Di Wentao, was stupid and annoying. Now, it seems that he's the most enlightened in this group. Yin Xiangming listened to their conversation in a daze, but he didn't even have the chance to talk back. I don't believe that you can stay here forever. I don't believe that the Di family can keep waiting outside. Anyway, we are not in a hurry. Let's see how patient they are. Wan Yanhan's gaze was cold. This was originally a tug of war. They wanted to see who would lose their patience first. However, he believed that the Di family would be the ones who couldn't take it. Chapter 4276. After Di Sudong and the rest returned from Chung Zonghao's place, they stayed in the inn. They couldn't understand what had happened today, so everyone seemed to have a lot on their minds. Second uncle, what Master Ching said can't be true, right? No matter how I look at it, that girl doesn't look like an inscription master. DeVows couldn't help but say. Di Sudong's face darkened. Actually, Chung Da's analysis is very reasonable. In today's situation, Wu Wenfeng indeed has no need to deceive us. However, since Master Chung said that he will check it out, we will just stay here and wait for the news. If Master Cheng's judgment is right and that girl is really an inscription master, then what should we do? DeVows' face turned ugly. Are we just going to let this matter go and not avenge Wen Tao? Hearing this, Di Sudong also fell into deep thought. However, his gaze gradually sharpened. Wen Tao's revenge must be avenged. Even if she is really an inscription master, we must take advantage of the fact that she has yet to gain a firm foothold here and get rid of her as soon as possible. DeVows, who was originally a little depressed, looked better after hearing this. He immediately nodded solemnly. Okay. Just now, Yin Xiangming and the rest have already gone back to think of a way. I don't know if we can lure them out. Just as DeVos was speaking, Yin Xiangming and the other two had already returned. However, after hearing the situation from Yin Xiangming and the other two, DeVos couldn't hold back his temper anymore. Are you all stupid pigs? How can they come out with such a method? Why don't you use your brains and think about it? Just by thinking about it, you know that all of this is simply impossible. Yin Xiangming and the other two shrunk their heads. Facing DeVos' reprimand, they could only endure it. Forget it. You all go back first. I will think of a way. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but shake her head after learning about Yin Xiangming and the other two's actions. These three guys are really stupid. Even if they want to lure us out, they should find a smarter excuse. Only a fool would agree to this kind of clamor. Actually, the three of them really don't have brains. If they had brains, they wouldn't be like this now. Yi Haomiao spread out his hands. His seemingly helpless expression was full of mockery. Maybe it's because they're stupid enough that they've always been loyal to Di Wentao. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. However, with their IQ, I don't think we need to worry. Just as they were talking, an unfamiliar disciple of the Blazing Flame School knocked on her door. Bailey Hongzhuang, I'm here to deliver a message. The man looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two with fear in his eyes. In fact, the three, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two, were known to be existences not to be trifled with. What's the message? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Master Cheng is looking for you. He wants to invite you out for a chat. The man's eyes were filled with excitement. He's the only inscription master in Rome and City. Being invited by him is something that everyone is looking forward to the most. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown. Then, she replied with two words, I'm not going. Hearing this, the man couldn't help but be stunned. He looked at her as if he was looking at a monster. Chapter 42:77. I'm not going. Bailey Hongzhuang spoke again, repeating her previous answer. The man stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in a daze. He stood rooted to the ground as if he couldn't believe what he had heard. Didn't you hear what I said? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a frown. The man was stunned before he nodded. I heard you. Aren't you going to report back? Oh, I'll go right away. After the man left, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Little junior sister, Master Cheng is an extremely powerful inscription master. How could you reject his invitation? I don't know him, so why should I go? Besides, he didn't invite me earlier or later. Why did he invite me now? Don't you think it's strange? Bailey Hongzhuang retorted. That's true. Perhaps this is a scheme the Di family came up with to lure us out and defeat us one by one. Yi Haomiao revealed a look of amazement. This move is much stronger than what Yin Xiangming and the others used before. Wang Yanhan nodded. In that case, it's indeed better not to go. After all, it's better to be careful. In my opinion, we shouldn't think about it no matter what news we hear. We should just stay quietly in the Raging Flames sect. As long as we stay here, the Di family won't be able to find trouble with us. Yi Haomiao sat on the chair nonchalantly. He looked like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. He had already made up his mind. Cheng Zonghao couldn't help but be stunned when he heard that Bailey Hongzhuang had rejected his invitation. He hadn't expected that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually reject his invitation. Master Cheng, Bailey Hongzhuang doesn't know what's good for her. It's already her great fortune that you're willing to invite her. She actually rejected your invitation. How despicable. Cheng Zonghao raised his right hand slightly and smiled faintly. It's okay. It's not strange. Master, your temper is too good. I think she doesn't know how to appreciate favors. I think she might have taken my invitation as a cover for the Di family. Given the current situation, it is indeed possible for her to think that way. Then should this subordinate go over again and explain to her? Cheng Zonghao waved his hand. No need. Next time, I'll go to the Raging Flame School personally. This little girl is indeed very interesting. When his subordinates heard that Cheng Zonghao was going to the Raging Flames Gate to see Bailey Hongzhuang, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. The other party was just a young girl. She was actually able to make his master personally meet her. Wasn't this a little too much face? In comparison, Chung Zonghao didn't think so. He only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang might have really mastered a very powerful method. Otherwise, Wu Wenfeng would not be so protective of her. When he thought about how the method that he hadn't been able to decipher for so many years might be in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands, he felt somewhat conflicted. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Wang Yinhan were about to return to the house after their discussion, another lady suddenly came looking for them. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown. "What's the matter?" "Miss Bailey, there's a man outside who wants to see you." "I'm not going to see him. No matter who he is, please help me answer that I'm not seeing him." Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand, a wave of annoyance in her heart. The D family's people had already failed once, and now they were using the same trick again. It was too boring. Chapter 4278. Yi Haomiao's eyes lit up with curiosity when he heard the woman's words. "This is interesting. What kind of person is so confident that you'll definitely go out and meet him once he says his name? What did that man say his name was? Tell us about it." Bailey Hongzhuang stopped in her tracks. She had not even gone out when the D family had mentioned Chung Zonghao's name. Now, she was so confident. This was indeed strange. After all, she had only been in the upper realm for a short period of time. Apart from Wang Yinhan and Yi Haomiao, she had not interacted with anyone else. It would be very difficult to get hold of her weakness. When she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were starting to get interested again, she could not help but whisper, "He said his name is Di Beichun." As the woman's voice fell, Wang Yinhan couldn't help but be taken aback. His eyes flashed with deep astonishment. He was no stranger to this name. Di Beichun? Yi Haomiao frowned. Who is that? I've never heard of him before. However, just as Yi Haomiao turned his head, he found that Bailey Hongzhuang's figure had disappeared. He couldn't help but be stunned and turned to look at Wang Yinhan. "Wang Yinhan, what's going on?" Wang Yinhan glanced at Yi Haomiao and said, "Di Beichun is Junior's sister's husband." Yi Haomiao was dumbfounded when he heard this. His face was full of astonishment. "Is this true? Didn't Miss Bailey say that her husband was in the lower realm? How did he suddenly find this place?" "I don't know." Wang Yinhan shook his head. "Perhaps he knew that Junior's sister had come to the upper realm, so he came here. Then let's go out and take a look. Let's go." Outside the Raging Flames sect, a white figure stood there for a long time. The man was tall and his back was straight. He had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, and a high nose bridge. The corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows seemed to be carefully carved by the heavens. They were perfect and flawless. A few koi fish were woven with silver thread at the end of his long white robe. It was otherworldly and elegant. He just stood there quietly, looking into the Raging Flames sect. Clearly, he was waiting for someone. At this moment, a group of people had already gathered around the white-robed man. Numerous gazes of surprise and curiosity landed on him. There were even quite a few women standing to the side who had already blushed. What a handsome young master. I have never seen such a handsome man before. He must have just arrived in Rong'an City. Otherwise, we would have heard of such a handsome man. From the looks of it, he must have come to our house of Raging Flames to look for someone. I wonder who he is looking for. I really envy the woman who helped to pass on the message just now. At least she could say a few words to him. I do hope that he's a new disciple who came to report to the Blazing Flame School. There have been many new disciples who have come to report to the Blazing Flame School. Everyone whispered to each other, but they all stopped on the spot. Obviously, they wanted to know who this handsome man was waiting for. Of course, almost all the women hoped that he was waiting for a man. That way, they would have hope. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard the name Di Beichun, she quickly ran out of the house of Raging Flames. Her elegant and refined face was filled with anticipation. Her beautiful eyes flickered with ecstasy. Chapter 4279. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang had arrived in the upper realm, she had been burdened with anxiety. On one hand, she was worried that Di Beichun would not know that she was still alive and would fall into agony because of this. On the other hand, she was worried that Di Beichun would not be able to find her after arriving in the upper realm. In this vast upper realm, if the other party did not know of her existence, then the chances of them meeting was very slim. She wanted to find out where the D family was, but she realized that it was extremely difficult to reach that level. With all these situations stacked together, one could imagine how complicated her feelings were. She did not want to be separated from D Bei-chun, just like this. She might not even be able to see him again for the rest of her life. However, she did not expect to suddenly hear the news that D Bei-chun had come to look for her today. She was simply overjoyed. After hearing this news, the three beasts' eyes were filled with joy. I never thought that D Bei-chun would be able to find Master so quickly. It seems that he's extraordinarily capable. Xiaohei's eyes sparkled with excitement. She could not help but clap her hands. D Bei-chun has always been very smart. It's not surprising that he would be able to find Master. However, I'm still surprised that he was able to find her so quickly. Xiaobai smiled. That's great. Master has been depressed because of this matter all this time. Now that D Bei-chun is here, Master doesn't have to be sad anymore. Baisha could not help but sigh in relief. His biggest wish was for his master to be happy. Although his master usually did not express anything in front of him, Baisha had followed his master for so long that he understood his master's character very well. He could even see his master's current emotions from her small, unintentional movements. Bailey Hongzhuang rushed to the entrance of the blazing flames sect as fast as the wind. As expected, she saw a familiar tall figure from afar. With just a glance, Bailey Hongzhuang recognized the familiar figure. At that moment, her eyes suddenly became sour, and her bright eyes gradually became moist. Bailey Hongzhuang's footsteps could not help but slow down. Staring at the charming figure, thousands of emotions flashed through her mind. As if feeling the gaze behind him, D Bei-chun turned around at the same time. When he saw that familiar figure, the curve of his lips couldn't help but gradually widen. His already extraordinarily handsome face became even more enchanting and charming. An indescribable warmth radiated from her body, as warm and enchanting as the winter sun. Even if the face in front of him was not the one he was familiar with, as long as he looked at the familiar figure, he could be sure that this person was his wife. Wife! His deep and magnetic voice was filled with longing and joy. D Bei-chun stepped forward. His long and narrow eyes were overflowing with color. It was as if his entire world had lit up the moment he saw Bailey Hongzhuang. During this period of time, he had been rushing about in search of Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, the worry in his heart had never lessened. At the time, Bailey Hongzhuang had entered the upper realm while being surrounded by everyone. He had never known the situation of Bailey Hongzhuang, so during this period of time, he had been worried that she might have met with some mishap. Chapter 4280. Hearing that familiar voice, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart skipped a beat. The smile on her lips became even more radiant. Then, she took a step forward and ran towards D Bei-chun. The smile on D Bei-chun's face became even more affectionate. He opened his arms and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into his embrace. Bei-chun, Bailey Hongzhuang called out softly. She hugged D Bei-chun tightly, feeling his familiar temperature, smell, and even heartbeat. Her heart, which had been floating around for the past few days, seemed to settle down in an instant. Wife, I'm here, D Bei-chun slowly said in Bailey Hongzhuang's ear. His deep voice was a little hoarse, but it couldn't hide the longing it contained. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly in D Bei-chun's embrace. Her little face was pressed against D Bei-chun's chest. Only when her emotions calmed down did she slowly raise her little face and look at D Bei-chun's handsome face. After taking a closer look, she discovered that D Bei-chun's eyelids were slightly green. His clothes were also covered in dust. It was obvious that he had been running around for the past few days and hadn't had a good rest. Bei-chun, you've been working hard these days, haven't you? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with concern. D Bei-chun held Bailey Hongzhuang's soft and boneless hands and shook his head with a smile. As long as I can see you, nothing else matters. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. A sweet feeling spread in her heart. Did you come alone? I came alone. D Bei-chun nodded. When Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao arrived outside the gate of raging flames, they saw the two figures hugging each other. They couldn't help but look at each other. Their expressions changed a little, and a trace of joy surged in their hearts. Is he Miss Bailey's husband? Yi Hao Miao's eyes flashed with amazement. Even though he was a man, he was still shocked the moment he saw Di Beichen. Previously, he had always thought that since Bailey Hongzhuang was so outstanding, her husband should also be extremely outstanding. Otherwise, he would not be worthy of her. However, after meeting Di Beichen, he felt that such a man was really rare in the world. Usually, he still had some confidence in himself, but facing a man like Di Beichen, he couldn't help but feel inferior. I think so. Actually, I haven't seen him before, but thinking about it, only a man like him is worthy of junior sister. Wang Yanhan smiled as he recalled how Bailey Hongzhuang always missed Di Beichen. In the past, he still had some doubts, but after seeing her today, the doubts in his heart completely disappeared. The two of them were really a match made in heaven. Aside from them, Di Beichen was probably not suitable for anyone else. Yi Haomiao's expression was rather complicated as he stared at the two figures hugging each other. To be honest, based on appearance alone, he felt that Di Beichen seemed to be more outstanding than Bailey Hongzhuang. However, after thinking about it carefully, he felt that since Bailey Hongzhuang was so outstanding, it wouldn't be bad to make up for it. Di Beichen was originally surrounded by a group of cultivators. Everyone was curious as to who he was waiting for. When they saw Bailey Hongzhuang appear, they couldn't help but be stunned. Many possibilities flashed across their minds, but they never thought that the person who had come would be Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman had only joined the Blazing Flames Order for a few days, but she was exceptionally eye-catching. Chapter 4281. Heavens, I never thought that it would be her. Where did this woman come from? Why is everything that has happened recently related to her? Even Steward Wu is protecting her. It's really strange. This man is so handsome. How did he fall for Bailey Hongzhuang? Look, their appearances are clearly not compatible. The group of women could not help but sigh. Looking at Di Beichen's incomparably handsome appearance, they felt that no one was worthy of him. However, the way Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang now was so obvious with the gentleness and adoration in his eyes. It was obvious that he had placed all his thoughts on her. This is too much of a blow. Did you guys hear what he called Bailey Hongzhuang just now? He actually called Bailey Hongzhuang his wife. Doesn't this mean that they're already married? This is unreasonable. Then isn't there no hope for us? For a moment, the area around Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen was filled with wails and howls. The sound of hearts breaking rose and fell one after another. Then, the group of women hugged each other for warmth and left. However, there were still many women who refused to give up until all hope was lost. They were unwilling to shift their gazes away from Di Beichen. Beichen, why did you come here alone? Didn't Ying and the others come? Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with anticipation. Until now, she was still unwilling to believe that Ying and the others might have fallen. At this moment, the reunion had left her with too many doubts. There were countless questions in her heart, and she only wanted to clarify them one by one. Previously, when I came out of the ruins, I heard the sound of your bomb. I immediately rushed over to look for you, but I was still one step too late. Later on, when I was looking for you, I found your hairpin at the side of the road. I was certain that you must have come to the upper realm, so I didn't have time to greet them and came here alone. However, when I entered the passage, I heard Xiren's voice. He must have come to look for us. Di Beichen spoke slowly. At that time, he had left in a hurry, but he still clearly remembered hearing Xiren's call. If he had slowed down a little, he would have been able to exchange a few words with Xiren and the others. However, since things had come to this, he was not too worried. Xiren and Shangwan Yingying knew that they had come to the upper realm. They would probably come here after they broke through to the Starlight Realm. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang, and I thought you didn't know that I had come to the upper realm. 2. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but rejoice. Fortunately, she had lost a hairpin. After coming to the upper realm, she also realized this, but she didn't know where her hairpin had fallen. She didn't expect it to fall at the entrance to the upper realm from the lower realm and leave such a message for Di Beichen. Otherwise, she really didn't know how long it would have taken for her to reunite with Di Beichen. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but think of the white dragon's figure. The reason why she was able to resolve the crisis was entirely because of the white dragon. Maybe the white dragon deliberately left the hairpin there. After all, it was too much of a coincidence. Wife, I still don't know what happened after I went to accept the inheritance. How did you end up like this? Chapter 4282. The situation back then was beyond our expectations as well. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed emotionally. Even though the incident had happened a long time ago, she could not help but sigh when she recalled it all. After you had received the inheritance from the ruins, we stayed in the ruins and waited for you to reappear. However, as we were waiting, I suddenly found a strange stone room and was separated from everyone else. However, we never thought that the cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect would return and attack Xiren and the others. By the time I emerged from the stone room, there was no one left in the ruins. Later on, I fell into their ambush. I see. It was only at this moment that Di Beichun understood everything. His deep, dark eyes suddenly darkened. I never thought that the members of the Crimson Moon sect would be so despicable. Things had turned out this way. However, at this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang could not care less about this. Di Beichun, are you sure that you heard Xiren's voice? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask. When I emerged from the ruins, the members of the Crimson Moon sect told me that Ying and the others had fallen. Her pitch-black, phoenix-like eyes flickered with a fervent and nervous light. This was undoubtedly the most unbearable thing for her. When she had first heard this news, she had felt her heart clench. She had long gotten used to living with Ying and the others. When she thought about how they would never appear in front of her again, she felt an emptiness in her heart. When he saw how concerned Bailey Hongzhuang was, Di Beichun could not help but reach out and stroke her head. He smiled and said, I did hear it. Don't worry, I didn't hear wrongly. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang heaved a sigh of relief. The sadness and oppression that had gathered in her heart was completely relieved at this moment. Shangguan Ying and the others were still alive. Di Beichun had also returned to her side. All of this made her feel extremely happy. When everyone saw how intimate Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang were, their eyes flashed with envy. For a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang had become the object of envy of the female disciples of the Blazing Flame School. When Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao's excitement, they were too embarrassed to disturb them. After all, they had been separated for such a long time. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Needless to say, they were overjoyed. When they saw that the two of them had calmed down, they slowly walked over. Little junior sister, Wang Yanhan said tentatively, afraid that his appearance would disturb their warmth. After seeing Wang Yanhan, Bailey Hongzhuang also revealed a smile. Senior brother, let me introduce you. This is my husband, Di Beichun. Nice to meet you. Wang Yanhan's smile was full of joy. I have long heard of your name from little junior sister. Seeing you today, you are indeed extraordinary. Speaking of which, you are my junior brother. I am so happy to see you in the upper world. After hearing Wang Yanhan's words, Di Beichun's handsome eyes flashed with a faint doubt. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's next words quickly resolved his doubts. Beichun, this is senior brother Wang Yanhan. He is the elder brother of senior brother Wang Yanling in our Penglai Palace.